Hunter must hunt.
Happy Tuesday all. Dingle dangle fingle fangle, happy Tuesday folks, and hoping at Al4ZR3D is starting to feel better. At Al4ZR3D, did you hear they're not making 12-inch rulers any longer?
must hunt.
Good afternoon.
A hunter must hunt.
All right, my friends. Welcome. It is the rarest of streams, a sitting down stream. I know. You're as surprised as I am, okay? You're as surprised. You are surprised, okay? I'm decided for you. You are surprised. I am feeling fine. I'm not sick anymore. I do have an intermittent cough. I might cough once or twice during the stream. But the rest of the symptoms are fine. I feel just fine, other than that. I do have a weird wound on my foot, and I'm not sure how that happened. Like, last night, I noticed I had, like, in the sole of my foot, there's, like, a big gash in the sole of my foot. I have no fucking idea how it happened. It's not bleeding or anything. I don't think it bled at all. It's just, it's only a surface wound, and, like, the sole of my foot is really thick skin. So I don't think it actually bled or anything when it happened, but it does hurt quite a bit. So I'm just trying to stay off my foot while it heals. That's all. So today will be a sitting down stream, but I assure you, there will be just as much malding, just as much fun. Okay, just as much as a standing up stream. You're getting old? I don't think I'm getting old. Don't you tell me that, mysteries. Don't you tell me that. I don't know how it happened. Just all of a sudden there's this big pain in the sole of my foot. So I'm just trying to stay off of it. I think it's better than it was last night when I noticed it. So I'm just trying to stay off of it while it heals. That's all. Buy new shoes. Oh, I definitely need to buy new shoes. Next year for DEF CON, I'm going to have to buy new shoes for sure. I need some, like, decent walking shoes. Like, I was doing the whole of DEF CON in, like, Converses. And let me tell you, I love my Converses, but they're not really comfortable to stand around in all the time. So, probably going to have to get new shoes that are good for standing around. Usually people from the Air Force last longer than all the other branches due to the constant chair sitting. This is like the second stream I've done sitting down. Like, literally the second one. And I'm dressed. I'm not wearing a hoodie today. Simply because it's a job interview. We're doing something a little bit different today. Just a little bit different. Today we're just going to experiment with something a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about job interviews. And you're going to be interviewing me. Bring me all of your interview questions. What interview, like, all of your questions you've gotten in interviews, fresh questions you're afraid of getting in interviews, questions about interview processes, how to present yourself well, how to do it well, how to interview well, in my opinion, and that kind of thing. I'm just wearing the kind of shirt that I'd typically wear for a job interview. That's all. Will this be done in VC? No, we're going to do it right here. We're going to do it right here. You could consider this is the VC of Twitch, okay? This is the Twitch VC. Star behind you doing hood rat shit? She always is. I don't know where she was walking around me a little bit ago. I don't know where she went. Sweet Pea, where you at? Okay, well, I don't know where she went, but I felt her walking around. I felt her. Oh, she walked out? Okay. Well, it's about that time of the afternoon when she finds a place to take a nap. This would have been nice before my interview. Oh, well, I'm sure you're going to have more interviews, Oreo Bite, especially because who would hire him? I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding. I'm sure there are going to be more interviews, and I don't even know how good of an interviewer I am. I feel like I'm a pretty decent interviewer. I feel like I'm a pretty decent interviewer, so hopefully I have some good advice to give. We're just trying something a little bit different today. This is a good. I get a lot of questions from the newbies. This seems like a good Newbie Tuesday topic to talk about. Which if we can just talk about a good hiring process, just talk about the hiring process in general. So we'll hang out a little bit and then we'll get started. Waiting for people to filter in. Mills Gold with the 4 months of Prime re-indoctrination into the cult. Welcome back to the All Has Red team. GP Lojo with the 5 months of Prime. Welcome back. Jifferam with the 69 Tiggle biddies twice, 2 times nice. Welcome back. And did you hear not making 12-inch rulers any longer? Doc Hobb with the 12 months. Welcome back to the All Has Red team. It's good to have you here. How many interviews are normal? Oh, it's going to vary depending on the job. I've had interviews that were one and done. Like, they just wanted one interview and then they sent me an offer. And I've had other interviews that were 5-6 interviews long. It depends on the company. Typically, bigger, in my experience, bigger companies require a more rigorous interview process. Bigger and especially like tech companies, in my experience, require a bigger interview process because they're going to have a technical interview and then they're going to have like just a soft skills interview, just getting to know you interview. I honestly, it's a big pet peeve of mine. It's a big pet peeve of mine when we have the 50 interview process. Where they wear you down with like a million fucking interviews and will never make a choice. I hate that. Have you ever had to do the paper interview bullshit? What do you mean by paper interview? I don't know what you mean by that. It's pretty normal to have anywhere from 1 to 5 interviews. If you had more than 5, I'd start to be like, what the fuck is going on at that company? Honestly, I wish people would do less interviews. It's ridiculous. You discuss money in the first interview. I never discuss money until as late as possible in the process. I get, like, the key to money is to not, with like, the recruiter's always going to try and pull a fast one on you, and you have to be careful about this. You have to be careful about this. My first bit of advice for the day is the recruiter is always going to ask, if you get contacted by a recruiter on, like, LinkedIn or something, they're going to ask you your salary expectations. You never give them a number. Never. Never tell them how much you're making now. Don't tell them how much you're expecting. Always try to waffle them with, well, how much are you looking for? Or if they refuse to answer you on that, you waffle them with like, well, I'm not really focused on money. I just want to know about the team culture and stuff like that. Never answer the interviewer when they ask you for your money expectations. Never, ever, ever, ever. Because what they're trying to find out, at that stage, they're trying to feel you out to see if they can lowball you. Okay? That's a whoops. Yeah, no, that's a very common mistake. If you want to make more money, I deeply recommend that you don't discuss money until the late stage. Make them say a number. Okay? Make them say a number. Like make them commit to a range. Make them at least commit to a salary range. And if it's within your parameters, then you proceed. Okay, but make them say it. Don't you say a number. Do not say a number. Ever. You sell your stock? Yeah, exactly. DeCroissant's absolutely right. If they're about to give you an offer, that's when it's time to talk about salary. But again, you make them say a number. Make them commit to a number, and then you bargain with them. You need to... Your stock is at, like DeCroissant said, your stock is at its highest when they want to hire you, when they've interviewed you and they want to hire you. You don't want to waste your time, obviously. I've gotten through a whole interview process and been lowballed on salary before. And I just say no. Like, you just say no and you just, like, head off. I won't waste time taking off work to eventually be given an offer. No, I agree, Mr. Muddy Pants. I'm not saying you should, like, just interview without any idea of the salary requirements they're looking for. My point is, you don't commit to anything yourself. Don't say a number. Make them commit to a range. Generally, if you persist, they will say a range. They'll give you a general range of what they're looking for. And then you decide if it's worth taking on the interview for yourself. but you just don't say anything yourself. If they ask you what salary range you're looking for, you don't answer, okay? You don't answer. Well, you do answer, but you don't answer with a number, which is what they're looking for. You answer with, like, well, what are you looking for? What kind of salary range are you targeting for this position? Because they definitely have a range that they're targeting. If they tell you they don't have a range and they're just feeling out the market, they're lying to you. They have a range, and they stare and refuse to answer. Exactly. Just say nothing. It's like talking to the police. I need Mr. Recruiter, I need an attorney present. Yeah. So that's my first bit of advice for you. Like in the if that's with talking to the recruiters. Checkmate, it's good to have you here, my friend. We're doing something a little bit different. Hopefully you don't get a different impression of what the stream is typically like. Typically we hack on this stream. Like I do hacking in front of you. We're not going to be doing it today. Today I'm trying something a little bit different. Not for any particular reason, but just because I want to try something. We're just trying something a little bit different. We'll see how well this goes off. But Master Recruiter, have you heard that I use Linux? Government jobs make this easy as they tell you that. Yeah, exactly. Government positions typically in the job description will have the pay range. And recruiters will just drop the pay range for you right there. Like in the government sector. But in the civilian sector, it's all about lowballing you, my dude. It's all about lowballing you. The recruiter is going to spin you some bullshit that, oh, you don't have to worry. I'm trying to get as much money for you as you can. As I can, because I get commission for that, which is not necessarily untrue, but keep in mind who they work for. The recruiter doesn't work for you. The recruiter works for the company, and the company wants to hire people for as little money as possible. Okay? That's how capitalism works. So you go through, you decide that they're not going to waste your time, at least, like by lowballing you on salary. You get them to say a range. Then you go through the interview process if it's enough, and then when they make you an offer, then it's the time for you to discuss salary with them, because as DeCroyson said, your stock is highest. Yeah, and they might have an existing relationship. Even if they don't have an existing relationship, they work for that company. They work for that company. Like they probably do get commission on like how much they hire you for. But I can't imagine that a company's going to be happy if they have to continually overpay their employees because of recruiters. Did you read Chris Nova's new book, Hacking Capitalism? I need to remember to buy that. I need to remember to buy that. I was going to buy it at one point and then just didn't. I do need to write that down. Let me write that down to remember to do it later. I do want to watch that. But yeah, that's the system we live in, so we have to learn how to game it, okay? You have to learn when to negotiate with companies on salary, okay? Interview questions. How do you handle competing deadlines versus the needs of the business and management requirements and expectations? Okay, one question at a time. If you're going to ask questions, don't just drop like a huge paragraph in the thing. Ask one question at a time, okay? How do you align set objectives and timelines with stakeholders? How do you handle missed deadlines? So, I mean, deadlines often are the needs of the business, I would say. This is kind of a vague, like, really interview. This is like a real... you usually, as a technical operator, you won't be asked questions like that. But sometimes if you're working directly with clients... Do you use any, sometimes if you're working directly with clients, they will ask you things of that nature. So I guess it's not an unfair question. I guess I would just say that sometimes, especially in the red teaming and penetration testing world, stuff just takes longer than you'd expect. I mean, you can think of it like the software development world. Particularly if you're trying to like develop code, or if you're trying to set up an environment or infrastructure or test an exploit. Stuff goes wrong. Stuff takes longer than you'd expect. And the company needs to be prepared for that. The company absolutely needs to be prepared for that. Okay? You need to be ready. It needs to understand what you need. So hopefully I would have some superiors that understand that sometimes, despite my best efforts, stuff is just going to take longer than it needs to take. That being said, make sure that they're allotting you enough time to complete it in the first place. make sure that they're taking your input on how much time you're going to have. Like for example, where this typically comes in with penetration testing is scoping. Scoping is, and there's this thing called scope creep. If you've ever heard the idea of scope creep, it happens in the development world and it happens in the penetration testing world. Scope creep is when you decide on a scope with a client, like what is to be tested, and then in the middle of the test, the client is like, "Oh, actually, can you test this other thing as well, really quick? It's just a little web app. It's just a little web app. Can you test that on the side? We forgot to bring that up." That's what we call scope creep, and you really want to avoid that. You strongly want to avoid that, because if you give an inch, they'll take a mile. Okay, what's a little web app is going to turn out to be a massive banking app that's going to take up all of your time. And you've only got 3 days for this assessment, so now all of a sudden the regular scope that you agreed upon is followed by the wayside, and everything becomes a disaster and falls apart really fast. And guess who they're going to blame that on? You, because you accepted the scope. So you need to make sure that that the scope is set, is clearly understood. It's not vague, so it's clearly understood what the scope is. And you need to make sure that the client is aware that they can't add to the scope after the fact while you're testing unless there's like something serious that needs to be addressed. Like, for example, if you gain access to the part of their environment that they didn't expect, they might ask you to see if you can get any further. That's the kind of acceptable scope creep that I would accept, because it was an unforeseen thing. And now they're curious and so on. And also it's because I've demonstrated that I've impressed them. So I don't mind as much. So I don't know. Make sure you're being given enough time. Make sure the scope is reasonable. Make sure you're doing the best you can to manage deadlines. But also make sure, that your company and your client is aware that sometimes things do go awry and you're just going to need a little bit more time to resolve it. That's about all I would say. I interview almost quarterly, mostly for sport, Husky says. I go in fairly frequent job interviews too. I turn down most of the offers that I get just because for various reasons.
A hunter must hunt.
I'm not like necessarily looking for a new job ever, but I just like kind of have my feelers out there. You know, you always, in my opinion, you should always have your toe in the water for new opportunities. You don't have to be actively pursuing it because interviewing takes a substantial amount of time, and that's a time investment, especially if you have interview challenges to solve and so on and so forth. But constantly be feeling out new opportunities. Being stagnant is being dead. Okay, you can always be looking for better. That doesn't mean the grass is always greener. But it just means that you should be on the lookout for a better opportunity if and when it comes along. That doesn't necessarily mean more money. It means whatever you decide better means in a career sense for you. I do the same. I try to interview regularly. Yeah, interviewing is a skill set. It is a skill that you have to build, and not everyone is good at it. And that's kind of why we're here. That's why I had the idea to do this today. We're going to be talking about it. We're hiring mid to senior consultants. If you're interested and also looking for a director of consulting, well, have your recruiter reach out to me then, who is Sin. I'd be happy to listen to him. Again, I always got my feelers in the water, even if I'm not actively looking. So if the opportunity is right, I could be persuaded. Question I had from a recent interview. Imagine you have a satellite sitting on a table in front of you. How do you hack it? Well, first I would ask, this is not the first thing I would immediately ask. That's an interesting question. I like it. But first of all, the first question is to be asked. And that's the kind of question where they're not looking for a set answer. That's not the kind of question like, oh, what's cross-site scripting? Or explain server-side request forgery or something like that. Those questions have like definite answers that they're looking for. They're not looking for a definite answer with hacking the satellite. They're looking for a thought process. They want to know what your methodology is. They want to know how you would attack an unknown quantity right in front of you. It's an open-ended question that you can talk about for any given length of time. So you need to be able to identify these. Okay, first of all, identify these, and also identify in the moment whether it's the kind of question that you feel like you're strong in, and the kind of question you feel like you're weak in. So it's very common as a red teamer to be given methodology-based questions. Like, as in, they'll ask me, well, okay, so let me give you a scenario, like a scenario-based question. They'll say, you have a client, they want you to red team them. They're giving you a month to do it or something. They'll outline some basic parameters, and then they'll just kind of turn you loose. The key with these questions is to zero in and talk at length on those parts that you are strongest at, okay? If there's an aspect of your craft that you are strongest at, that's what you want to ramble on about. This is an open-ended question, so there is value to be had in wasting as much time talking about stuff that you know you can talk about, so there isn't as much time for them to ask you questions about stuff that you don't necessarily know about. I wouldn't recommend rambling. Rambling is the wrong word. I just mean the scenario-based questions give you a good opportunity to really zero in on the details of those aspects of your craft where you know the details. So if they ask you to test a web app and you're really good at test a web app, mention those web application vulnerabilities in detail. That you mention the parts of your methodology that you can talk about in detail. If you're not so good at like logic flaws and OAuth and stuff like that, don't just maybe mention that. Well, I would maybe look for OAuth vulnerabilities, but don't zero in on it. Zero in on something else. It's something. Talk in detail about the stuff that you can confidently talk in detail about. Okay? This is my standard answer to any questions. My philosophy is basically this: don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone for any reason ever, no matter what, no matter where or who you are with, or where you're going or where you've been, ever, for any reason whatsoever. Like, yeah. You don't want to just ramble on. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's a kind of run out the clock situation. And if you can zero in on the details, if you can drive the conversation to stuff that you really know very well, like say you're really good at AV evasion, drive the conversation to how, like, in the scenario-based question, drive the conversation to, like, evading the antivirus of the client. Say the kinds of things you would do. Again, it's an open-ended question, so you get to direct where it's going to go. Direct it to where you're strong. Okay? Direct it to where you're strong is all I'm trying to say. Can we also ask technical questions? Yes, we can. Let me ask the satellite question. And so the satellite question, again, this is a large open-ended question from Hibachi Chicken. The question was, imagine there's a satellite on the table in front of you, hack it. The first concern that I would have answering that question is that this is not a satellite in its natural environment, right? Is the satellite turned on? Is the satellite the satellite is not operating in its normal environment. So I'd automatically be skeptical about hacking it, because like when we're talking about an adversary getting into it, the adversary is probably going to be trying to attack it while it's in its natural environment and doing its normal thing. So it feels a little weird to try hacking something if it's not doing the thing it normally is meant to be doing. That's the first thing I would point out. Okay, so it's not in space. The satellite's not in space. That may or may not be a concern for them. But ideally, if you're going to penetration test something, it should be as close to production as you can, with ideally not being in production. The first question obviously needs to be asked is the satellite switched on? If it is switched on, how does it interact? How is it communicating? The satellite needs, all satellites by definition, or not by definition, but necessarily need a way to talk to ground stations. Okay, so how does it talk into ground stations? How does it communicate? What does it communicate with? What is it designed to communicate with? Take Starlink satellites, for instance. I read an article recently about a guy who managed to hardware hack his Tesla satellite thing, and he was able to compromise essentially the entire network of Starlink by compromising his own satellite dish, he was then able to get, I think he was able to get, they were vague about it, but he was able to get into satellites and go and browse the whole satellite network of Starlink. So again, it's important to know what the satellite is communicating with and how it's communicating. So the first thing you're going to want to ask for is documentation on the satellite. Do you have an instruction manual? Do we have any kind of documentation on the satellite at all? Okay. And if so, you're going to want to read the documentation. You're going to want to know as much as there is to know about that satellite in as short a period of time as possible. Okay. You got to read the documentation. Yeah. The things you're going to focus on is what protocols of the satellite using to communicate. Are they proprietary or are they well known? Or are they like custom? Are they proprietary, or is it like an HTTP API or something like that? I don't know if satellites use HTTP APIs. I'm sure some of them do. You want to know how it works under the hood. Get schematics, hardware schematics if you can. What countermeasures are in place to prevent intrusion? The more you know before you start getting your fingers into things, the easier it'll be to troubleshoot stuff later on. So that's where you would start, and at this point I would sort of prompt the interviewer to see if there's anything they wanted me to zero in on talking about. But let's say, for example, that I'm really good at hardware hacking. I'm not. But let's say, for example, I was. Like, let's say I was the kind of person who's really hot on, like, soldering and hardware hacking. Voltages, soldering, and hardware hacking, that sort of thing. At this point, instead of querying the... at this point, I would zero in heavily on taking the satellite apart, figuring out how it works along with the documentation, understanding which circuits flow into which circuits, the overall how the whole thing works. This is what I'm talking about with zero in on the things where you are strong. Okay? If you're strong at the hardware aspects, use the open-ended question to zero in on the hardware aspects. Does that make sense? There's probably a USB port. Yeah, that's why I'm saying you need documentation. The satellite has to communicate. It needs a way that it can load, that software can be installed on it, that sort of thing. So zero in on the aspects of hacking it where you are strong as much as you can in these scenario-based questions. Do you know some good bypass that still works to bypass EDR, or some good resource to study? First of all, every EDR is different, okay? Every EDR is different. I'm assuming I'm going to take this like an interview question, so I'll answer it like I would in an interview, okay? So you get this kind of question a lot as a red teamer, and the answer is that there's no answer that works for every EDR, okay? Every EDR is different, is going to detect on different things. So in an ideal world, if you're trying to detect EDR, you know exactly which EDR you're trying to detect against, and you can spin up that EDR in some kind of a test environment so that you can see how it operates and what it detects on. Some companies actually have their own proprietary EDR, like that. They have their own internal EDR that they'll use. So can you get documentation on the EDR? Can you play around with it in an isolated environment, understand better what it's detecting on and how it works? That's the first question that you're going to ask. There's no good bypass that works for every EDR. Every EDR is different. It detects on different things. Assume a developer comes to you with a basic login page with a username, password, and a submit via post request, and wants to change the web request method to get. What are some security considerations for this, and how would you handle it? Well, first I would say don't do that. Would be my recommendation. Some security considerations that you'd have is that security considerations I'd have is that if you're submitting it via a GET request, that means the parameters are in the URL. Okay, the username and password are going to be passed in the URL. They'll be logged in the browser. They'll be logged in by network monitoring tools. They may be logged by any web proxies that are in between you and the web page you're authenticating to. Those URLs are going to be logged in any number of places, and they might be logged on the server as well. And you don't want that. You don't want credentials that are just being logged in random places That's the biggest security consideration that I'd have in that situation. I would deeply recommend they not change the request method to GET. That seems like a bad choice. Describe what you see as all there is. You give the impression of knowing everything by showing deep proficiency on one topic. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. If they're giving you an open-ended question like, how would you hack a satellite in front of you? If you're really good at the hardware aspects, zero in on that and talk about it in detail. Let them decide if they want to derive you to somewhere else. But while you can, spend the time in the interview talking about the aspects that you're strong about. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't ramble. Talk in detail. Talking in detail is not necessarily rambling, okay? So yeah, that's the first thing I would be concerned about. That would be what I would mention. Describes this as but the developer then says, but I'm using SSL, should be fine then, right? It doesn't matter. If it's being logged in the browser, it's going to get logged in the browser regardless of SSL. SSL just means that the request cannot be viewed between where it's being sent and where it's ending up. And that's ideally if the SSL is being implemented properly and there isn't some kind of man-in-the-middle situation happening, and if there isn't some kind of SSL stripping proxy, which some companies do. Okay? So encryption is just protecting the data from where it's starting to where it's ending. Again, assuming there isn't some kind of proxy that's doing SSL stripping or any kind of other man-in-the-middle attack happening here. Okay, we're only talking about a basic SSL scenario. But it's still going to get logged in the browser. It's going to get logged on the server. It could get logged by network monitoring tools that someone browsed to that web page with the full URL string, including parameters. It's still going to get logged. Like, it's still going to get logged. Like, at either the source or the destination. Like, even if SSL covers those parameters, it doesn't save them if it's being logged in all these places that aren't covered by SSL. SSL is only covering the transmission from the browser to all the areas between the browser and the web server. Again, in an ideal world, a simple SSL situation. Does that make sense to everybody in the chat? Those are good interview questions. Also, if you use GET to submit passwords, the referrer header can leak it. That's another one. Good one. Good one, Beastie. Good one. That is a good one. The referrer header can indeed leak it if it's in the GET. If it's in the GET, because sometimes it will leak the whole URL string. So again, the problem with the GET request, ideally, the problem with the core problem with using a GET request for login is that URL strings tend to be logged places, and they tend to appear in other places, like in the referrer header or the location header. You want to watch out for that, okay? Watch out for that kind of stuff. During a physical red team assessment on the topic of social engineering, how far is too far? Anything that violates the scope. The answer to that, EtsySec, is anything that violates the scope. In an ideal job, you would have, if you were doing your job as a penetration tester, you would have clearly outlined the scope ahead of time. All the affected parties would be aware, that need to be aware. And too far is anything that violates the scope. If it doesn't violate the scope, it's not too far. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you should like trick the client into letting you do some like crazy attacks and so on by not saying that they're possible or that you can do them. I'm not saying you should do that, okay? I'm saying that you should sit down with the client and outline exactly what kind of test they're doing, that they're looking for. What vulnerabilities are they specifically concerned about testing, so that you can make sure that you can test them and that they're included in the scope, and that you outlined to them the general capabilities of their team. And typical problem areas for an assessment like that are like trying to scare employees. Companies get squirrely about when you do anything that is going to scare their employees. I got a lot of this during the COVID era. I mean, we're still in the COVID era, I guess you could say. But early on in the COVID era, when people were initially worried about it and vaccines were starting to roll out, or there were whispers of a vaccine, a lot of companies that I was dealing with, that when we would send phishing emails, did not want us to use COVID as a vector. They didn't want us to like say, well, if you want your COVID vaccine, you have to register at this link or whatever, because that is like scaring people. They don't want you to like scare people or like claim it's like a hostage situation, and like you have their son in the trunk of your car, and if you don't click on this link right now, we're gonna tickle his toes until he can't stop laughing or something like that. Okay, don't scare employees. They don't like that. Make sure you outline, you tease out of them. It's your job as a professional in this space to tease out of them what would and would not be acceptable for them. That's your job. Okay, don't rely on them to say everything that they want. Okay, you're the professional. They're hiring you because you are a professional in this space. You have to direct the conversation, and you need to be good enough at the scoping discussion. If you're not good enough at the scoping discussion, get someone on your team who's better at it. Hopefully that's a good enough question for that. For my current job, I was asked how I can convince a director or project manager to fix a vulnerability, how to convince them that it's important to fix. So I say this a lot in interviews, that part of your job as a penetration tester or a red teamer is to scare the client. Now, I just said you shouldn't scare the client. In that sense, I was talking about it. You shouldn't scare their employees, like random employees, into doing stuff for you. That's not what social engineering is. We're not just trying to well, it technically is, but we're not trying to cause anyone any undue hardship through our social engineering, through a test, a simulation. But when it comes to reporting vulnerabilities, let's say when you report a vulnerability, in this case, I deeply recommend, if you're asked a question that allows you to launch into a story from your professional experience that you can talk about, I deeply recommend that you do that. Okay? I deeply recommend that you do that. And here's why. Companies like to see that you have experience in the thing. If they're asking you a question like that in an interview, it means that it almost definitely they've run into problems with that before. Okay? They've run into problems with that before. Okay? So they want to know how you would handle it, if you would bring a positive change to their team. Does that make sense? So if you demonstrate that you have hands-on experience with dealing with that problem, that is a real big plus for you. Like, for example, I can talk about it at a previous job. I'll talk about it at a previous position I've had. I won't use the company name or anything like that. But I can talk about a very, very severe vulnerability that I found in their in the way that they roll out new workstations. Okay, they asked me to test their new workstation build. Okay, like the new build of their workstation. And I found a vulnerability that exists in all of their builds. Okay, and this was not like a small vulnerability. We're not talking about like, oh, you might be able to execute, there might be a race condition where you can execute code as another user or something like that. Did the build contain domain admin credentials? No, but you're not too far off. But not too far off. Now, I won't launch into the whole story unless they really are interested and want to hear it. I would give them the onus if they want to hear it, because it's a long story of me discovering the vulnerability and so on. But I'll say that the vulnerability itself was discovering that I didn't find a local administrator password or anything in any of their proprietary executables. But this was a build for like an employee's laptop. Like if an employee sent a laptop, they open the laptop up, they turn it on, and it provisions itself on the domain of the company, right? Everyone is familiar with this. We all work remotely now. We understand how this works, okay? It's very, very simple. Okay, so it was just they sent me just a normal Windows laptop like they'd send to any of their normal employees, except it was on the newest Windows build. I think at that point it was 21H1 or something. It was the newest Windows build at that time. This was middle of last year for a time frame. When the employee first logs in, there was a series of executables that are run from a hidden directory located in the C drive that that provision the laptop on the domain. They set up the laptop how the domain expects. They do all the things that need to be done on the workstation for it to be on the domain. Quotation marks hidden. I mean, it is hidden, but it's easy enough to reveal hidden files and directories, so it wasn't hard for me to find, you know. That's one of the first things I do on a new Windows machine. I'll change the settings so that it shows file extensions, because I hate that Windows doesn't show file extensions by default, and I'll show hidden files. So it didn't take me long to find the directory, and all those executables are .NET executables. What do we do with .NET executables, friends? What do we do with .NET executables? What do we do with .NET executables? Yep, that we de-spy. Okay, we decompile. Okay, .NET executables, or Microsoft Java, as we call it on this stream, are very easy to decompile. My preferred tool is dnspy, but there are other tools that'll do it for you as well. You can decompile them and get back something very close to the source code that was used to compile it. And you can even export all the source code and compile your own custom version. Okay? So, I did that. Unfortunately, they had anticipated it and they obfuscated it. Okay? So they obfuscated it. But the short version is, I did manage to deobfuscate one of the executables enough to get domain credentials out of it. It was not domain admin credentials. They were not privileged credentials at all. But based on the context, other strings, I could tell that these were low privilege credentials on the domain for a network share. Okay, and the network share was executing more executables. Okay, one of the executables that was being run was called admin 0017. Was it? It was like admin 007 or admin 17, something like that. And then the word admin, we like the word admin, don't we, folks? Words like admin, backup, I don't know. That's one of those words, okay? All I'm trying to say is that's one of those words, okay? One of those words. Password too. Those are the kind of words that should catch your eye, okay? Admin017.exe. Golly gee whiz, I wonder what that's doing. And it actually correlated with a log file I already saw.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
There, in that same hidden directory, there was a log directory, and one of the log directories was admin017.log. And I was wondering, and the log said admin password set successfully. Local admin, it said local admin password set successfully, or something to that effect. And then it was the timestamp. There was a timestamp with it. But that didn't matter. So, based on the name of this and the fact that I can now see this other network share, and I can see that there's a executable called admin017, what can I naturally deduce? I can deduce that admin017.exe is responsible for setting the local administrator password. Does that sound like something you want to poke at? Fuck yeah, it does. Okay, I want to know what the local admin password is being set to. This also means they're not using laps. Okay, this means they're not using laps. Bad. Bad organization. Bad company. Okay? They're not using laps. That's a problem. Red flag. Okay? Red flag. So are they setting the local admin password to some predictable value? Or worse, are they setting it to one constant value throughout the entire domain? I pull down admin017 and it's obfuscated too. And unfortunately, there are no strings in it that indicate exactly. There's no strings that look like a password to me. I even tried some of them that I thought might be a password, but they weren't the local admin password. So whatever it was being set to, it wasn't being set to like just a string in the, and I couldn't see exactly what the .NET executable was doing because it's too obfuscated. It was using an obfuscation library called ConfuserX. ConfuserX is, as it turns out, real fucking good As it turns out, ConfuserX is very fucking good at resisting my attempts to deobfuscate. Very fucking good. I was able to decrypt the strings, and that was it, with some open source tooling. So now I go to debugging. Now it's time to debug. Here we go. We're debugging. I was not happy about this because I had to use WinDebug. After doing some research, I decided that the best way to debug it was going to be to use WinDebug. And I wanted to see, because I wanted to see the modules are going to be loaded into memory. When they're loaded into memory, they are unobfuscated. Okay, I need that. I need the unobfuscated memory modules. So I decided that I had to execute it and put a breakpoint at the entry point in WinDebug. I figured out how to do that. And then I look at all the functions. Okay, I look at all the functions. They don't have names that I can recognize. I just have memory addresses. I just know where the functions are located. And I start looking at the function prototypes. And I find one that accepts the host name of the box. Interesting. I find there's only a couple of functions. It's not a big executable. Like, it doesn't have a whole lot of stuff that it does. This was a pen test? No, it's just a pen test, not a red team assessment. I wouldn't have had the time to go in this detail on the red team assessment. One of them accepts the host name of the box, and it spits out some kind of alphanumeric string. Golly, what do you think that alphanumeric string is? If I, with how WinDebug works, I can feed different functions in memory arbitrary parameters and see what it spits out. In this case, this one was asking for the host name of the box. And if I fed it the host name of my current machine, it spit out some alphanumeric string. And guess what that string was? It was the local admin password.
Must hunt.
The local admin password for my machine. So here's the question, chat. Pop quiz. What's the extent to this vulnerability? Were they just base64ing it? I don't know what the algorithm was. All I know is how to feed it. I was literally just manually feeding it into the function in memory. I was using a debugger to manually feeding the function. So this is a really important one, okay? This is a really important one. What is the impact of this vulnerability? Because I've escalated to local admin. I have local admin on my PC right now, but does it stop there? I now have local admin everywhere where that particular executable is being used where that particular executable is being used to set up the box. I now have local admin everywhere. I picked another random workstation on my local domain, on my local subnet. I just contacted it with crackmap exec. Crackmap exec will show me its host name with just a simple SMB communication. I fed its host name into this function in WinDebug. It spat out an alphanumeric string. I authenticated to it with crackmap exec, and I got the little pwn string that indicated I have local admin. I just tried it on one other machine, and then I was like, shit. So what you need to say at this point, to go back to the original interview question that resolved that got to this, like, how do you really push for your vulnerabilities to be fixed? You have to scare people. You have to tell them the impact. What would happen if an attacker on their network discovered what I just discovered? Answer that question for me, chat. What would happen? What immediately happens? Ransomware! Ransomware! Everywhere! A whole machine! The entire domain is ransomwared in an hour! In an hour, tops! The whole machine is ransomwared. That's all it takes. That's all it takes, my dudes. Whole machine, everything is ransomwared. Everything. They are now fucked. They've had a breach. Everything is ransomwared. They're fucked. Okay? They are fucked. So that's what you have to say to them. You have to scare them a little bit. You have to tell them the impact. What happens if an attacker does what I just did? That's how you get stuff fixed. You have to kind of scare them into it, because that's your job, okay? That's your job. All right, Teddington with the 11-month re-indoctrination. Fromaster with the 11 months. Owen Codes with the 11 months. Thank you guys so much. Welcome back to the All Has Red team. Jay-Z, you've been indoctrinated by Scrubterfuge. Welcome to the All Has Red team, Scrubterfuge. Good to have you. Jay-Z, thank you for the gift. I really do appreciate it. Teddington UK and Bravo Child with the 5 and 69 tickle biddies. Respectfully, thank you guys so much. Maximilus Santonius, thank you for the follow. Metcon, thank you for the follow. Cthulhu, Fountain to you, my friend. Okay, more questions. I got to get to more questions. But that's a good example of a question in which, if the interviewer is okay with it, you should try and demonstrate your hands-on experience if you can. Okay? Demonstrate that you have hands-on experience dealing with the question that they have asked you. Because chances are, if they ask you that question, they've had problems with people in the past. regarding that question. Hey, Al, what are some questions that one might be asked regarding programming and scripting? Well, first they're going to ask what languages you're good in. Okay? They're going to ask what languages you can program in. And don't lie. Do not lie. Okay? Don't lie. Listen to Al today. Okay? Don't lie. Because you can't lie about technical questions. If they ask you straight up how to do something, typically in a red team or a pen tester interview, I'm not going to be asked straight up programming questions because it's a little weird. I would not be asked straight up programming questions, but don't lie because there might be an interview challenge where they ask you to code in that language. Okay. As a penetration tester and red teamer, I typically won't be asked a whole lot about programming and scripting. Sometimes I'll have challenges that involve programming and scripting. It's very common for me to be given some kind of a programming challenge, but I can tackle it in the language of my choice. For a recent challenge, I had to take I think it was Code and Go. Is it Code and Go? It was some kind of it was some kind of coding platform that has some kind of an interview setting. So they send you a challenge, you click on a link, and it opens up like a in-browser code editor for you in a language of your choice. I mean, they have a variety of different languages. They didn't have every language. Like, I checked for NIM, and they didn't have it. But that's okay. I'm more comfortable in Python. For the thing they were asking me to do, I was more comfortable in Python anyway. I'm not going to say exactly what the challenge was, but they had they outlined a scenario for me, and they were like, we need a script that's going to do this, and it needs to have this specific output, and you can code it in the language of your choice. It needs to parse some kind of big file or something like that, something that has to be done with a script. I have had those. I have had those before, those little coding challenges, but usually I'm not asked too many questions directly. What questions would you expect on a blockchain security company? They would definitely expect you. I've never interviewed with a blockchain security company. God damn. I would literally never work for a crypto organization. Jesus. Also, that's kind of an oxymoron. Troxal, that's kind of an oxymoron because a blockchain security company would not be hiring security people. It's the blockchain. It's perfectly secure. We know that. Okay? Listen, this is the blockchain. It's not possible to hack it. We know this. Everybody knows this. Okay? Don't ask questions, please. So it's kind of silly to think of a pen tester being hired at a blockchain. They're not hiring too many security people, okay? That's all I'm saying. I wonder why that is. That's weird. What do you do when you know move about how more? Do you mean you know more? I'm going to assume you mean more. Know more about how to cross-compile different languages versus writing skill? That's fine. That's totally fine. I'm just saying don't lie about your skills. That's all I'm trying to say. It's usually hacker rank standard questions. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say about that. I would say the challenge I just described for you on Code and Go or whatever it was probably like a hard at hacker rank. It wasn't too bad. It took me maybe an hour to get through it. Maybe a little less because I spent a while. It turns out Python added a new feature I've been asking for them to add. I've been wanting them to add for many versions now. And I was trying to figure out how to do that properly. But other than that, it wasn't a big deal. Do you ever get asked something totally unrelated to the job? You've probably removed the Lego or Star Wars franchise from history. Which do you choose? Lego or Star Wars? God, probably Star Wars so that Disney couldn't buy it and ruin it. It would probably be Star Wars. That's probably what I would say. But yeah, sometimes they'll ask you out of left field questions like that. That's because they're trying to get a feel for who you are as a person. That's pretty normal. Had this question once asked from a prospective office I was looking at going into my Army internship. If you could hack anyone, anything, and not get caught, what would it be? Ooh. Ooh. Ooh! Oil companies. Oil companies. I would cause some eco-terrorist damage. This in Minecraft. In Minecraft, if there was an oil company in Minecraft, I would really want to cause that oil company or fossil fuel company significant damage in a video game. I would like them to have difficulty playing Minecraft. Okay? I would really like them to have that oil company have difficulty playing Minecraft. Okay? That is it's not a gotcha question at all. Well, I don't feel like it's a gotcha question. Just be honest. Like, don't say you want to commit crimes. Do it like I just said. Okay? Do it like I just said. Because what does that indicate about me? It indicates what I care about as a person. What I care about as a person, I'm kind of an environmentalist. I care about the environment. And I do believe that there are companies that are causing irreparable harm to the environment for a percentage, and I think it would behoove someone to cause them significant damage in Minecraft, okay, in a video game. I would not want those people in my video games, okay? I would not want those people playing video games. Yeah, nice try, Mike Parsons. Yeah. What kind of questions can I expect if I'm looking for an internship in pen testing? Any of if you're a beginner pen tester, if you're looking for an entry-level pen testing position, you can expect a lot of technical questions like, what is cross-site scripting? What is server-side request forgery? Describe NTLM authentication? Tell us the TCP handshake. You can expect a lot of questions that are hard and fast, like interview questions like that. Don't lie. Don't try to bullshit. Okay? Do not try to bullshit. You can't bullshit technical questions. Technical questions have technical, specific answers. You can't bullshit those. Okay? So don't lie. But if you don't know the answer to a question, you should instead replace it with, how would you find out the answer? Okay? A lot of times, if you keep answering their questions correctly, they're going to raise the difficulty of the questions until they run into something that you don't know, because they're looking for the extent of your knowledge. So when you run into that, it's okay. It's okay. That's going to happen. It doesn't mean you failed the interview, okay? Mission failed, we'll get them next time. It doesn't mean that, okay? Tell them, instead of answering the question directly, tell them how you'd find out the answer. Tell them how you would find out the answer. Tell them that how you would research it, okay? How to properly disable pass the hash attacks without the need to disable NTLM authentication. Use Kerberos instead. Require Kerberos authentication everywhere. That's the only way, without disabling NTLM entirely. Without disabling NTLM entirely, you can't get rid of pass the hash techniques. You can't. It's just not possible. It's how NTLM works. As long as NTLM is in operation, you are not going to be able to... as long as NTLM... You can require, on a service-to-service basis, you can require... Kerberos authentication without having to disable NTLM authentication domain-wide. But there is no way, as long as NTLM authentication is being used, to prevent pass the hash. You just can't. You little eco-terrorist in Minecraft. Where I can sign up as a red team work is better than a one-man show. I agree. I'm a social creature. I like having a team rather than being a one-man show. Someone calculate fighter pilot Al's carbon footprint. First of all, whose carbon footprint do you think is bigger, mine or the fossil fuel companies? Like this idea of carbon footprint, who do you think came up with the idea of carbon footprints? Who do you think came up with that idea, Jay-Z? Let me get on my soapbox here for a second. Who came up with the concept of a carbon footprint? Pop quiz. Who came up with it? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't anyone. It wasn't an individual. And it's not the NFT people either. Taylor Swift. No, it was not Taylor Swift. It's the fossil fuel companies. It's all the companies that are actually ruining the environment. Okay? It's all the companies that are actually ruining the environment. Okay? Those are the people who came up with the idea of a carbon footprint. And they came up with the idea of recycling, too. And, I'm not saying that an individual reducing their carbon footprint is bad. I'm also not saying that an individual recycling is bad. They're obviously not. But the problem is that that's those corporations trying to shift the burden of climate change reform on you, the consumer. Your impact is so astronomically less than a fossil fuel company that it's absurd. And the fossil fuel companies are just trying to force you to change rather than them. They're trying to resist change as much as possible because it impacts their profits. So they're shifting it onto you. So they don't have to do anything. So instead, they can claim they're a green company and put out ads saying, reduce your carbon footprint, recycle more. And like, it could sound really good and they can get good press out of it without actually fucking doing anything. Yeah, that's how it works. Don't fall for the propaganda is what I'm telling you. Don't fall for the propaganda. Any individual person who exists in the world is not responsible for climate change. Okay? It's not responsible for climate change. The people responsible for climate change are the big corporations that are torching the environment for a percentage. Those are the people who bear the burden. Those are the people who bear the burden. Like, my sister is an environmentalist, much more than I am. And she criticizes me for driving a sports car. I have a sports car. And I wouldn't say it's a gas guzzler. It gets 30 miles to the gallon highway. But it's definitely not an electric car or anything. It's not getting like a, it's not pulling down like hybrid. Like it's not a hybrid or anything. It's definitely a it is a gas car. Gets 30 miles to the gallon on the highway. Pretty decent, I think, for a sports car. But my point is, the point I have to make to her every time is my car is not ruining the environment. My car is not ruining the environment. My singular car is not ruining anything. It's the fossil fuel companies that are ruining the environment. And we need to make sure. I'm not saying that electric vehicles are bad, but that's for a whole different discussion. I'm not saying that somebody selling their gas car for an electric car is bad. It's definitely not. It's definitely good. It's definitely a net good right there. Definitely a net good. But in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. It's insignificant. It means absolutely nothing. Unless Amazon stops polluting, unless ExxonMobil stops their operations, unless all these fossil fuel companies stop what they're doing, no changes gets made. Okay, no significant things happen. Okay. Ask him how the batteries are produced. I mean, I've heard that argument before, Beastie Bumblebee. It's a decent argument. But the argument is basically that the majority of a car's carbon footprint is actually generated when the car is manufactured, rather than when the car is operating, which is, I think, a reasonable thing. But I don't think that's a correct I don't think it's the best argument because it accepts the premise that they're trying to make. That you as an individual are responsible for climate change and you as an individual should feel bad. You as an individual should not feel bad unless you're voting for policies that support the fossil fuel companies. Then you should feel bad. You should be opposing fossil fuel company lobbyists. You should be engaging in eco activism, that sort of thing. Do they ever do the stare? What do you mean by the stare? Explain the stare to me. Okay, I went on a little carbon thing there. NTLM is the hash if you log in. Okay, what? Let me just make sure I missed any. Okay. Husky Hacks asks, explain the difference between NTLM, net NTLM v1 and net NTLM v2 hashes. Which hashes can you pass? Which hashes can you crack? Which hashes can you relay? The answer to all of those is, okay, the one you can pass is NTLM. You cannot pass NTLM v1, and you can't pass net NTLM v2, okay? Which hashes can you crack? You can crack all three of them. And which hashes can you relay? All of them can be relayed. All of them can be relayed. But you would typically relay net NTLM v2 because net NTLM v2 is the strongest of all of those. Net NTLM v1 was their first attempt to improve the NTLM authentication protocol. But it can be trivially reversed. Net NTLM v1 hashes can be easily reversed back into regular NTLM hashes. So they're essentially equivalent to NTLM. Do the military-industrial complex next. Okay, here's the hot take on the military-industrial complex. Okay, ready? It bad. Okay, all done. Oh, shit. I went to the wrong one. Oh my god, they're coming for me. Listen, I said Minecraft, people. I said in Minecraft. That absolves me of guilt, okay? In video games, there should be no fossil fuel companies in video games. Okay? No fossil fuel companies in video games. I don't want any of my video games to have fossil fuel companies in them. Okay? I didn't know we were interviewing for a position at Greenpeace. I don't mind getting on my soapbox about environmental activism every once in a while. There's a lot of propaganda out there. What do you say we move on from this question? I would not go on my soapbox about environmental activism. We only got on here because someone asked if I could hack somebody and not get caught, who would it be? And I said I would hack the Minecraft accounts of the fossil fuel companies. How important are certifications to start a career in pen testing? Good question. I would say they're important for getting your first job, for getting your foot in the door, starting to get that on-the-job experience. But after that, hands-on experience is really what people are looking for. They're looking for hands-on experience doing whatever it is that they want you to be doing. So certifications become less and less important as time goes on, as you start accruing that experience. If I miss your question, just please ask again and at me so I can see it more easily in the chat. What question should you ask? That's a good question, Dat Guy Kim. I love that. I love that question. Okay, love that question. Because there's going to come the end of the interview when the interviewer is going to ask, do you have any questions for me or for us? And this is important. You should always have questions ready. Always have questions. And if you're wondering why, the answer is because it shows you have interest in the position and you're not just wasting their time. You're not just taking an interview just for kicks and giggles. It shows you have interest in the position and you've thought about it, and that you are engaging with what they're talking about. It shows you're engaged in the conversation. You're engaged in this interview. Okay. Do a little bit of research. We're not going to call it OSINT. We'll just call it like going to the company's website, going to their wiki page, understand the company. At least take a few minutes to understand the company beforehand. And one of the questions I always like to ask, and I recommend that you ask as well, is there anything on my resume or in this interview that makes you wonder if I'm not a good fit for the role for which I am interviewing? And the reason I like to ask that is it helps me point to bad points in my resume. It helps me identify things that I can change in my resume. And it also gives me an idea. It gives me the biggest thing it gives me is inside information about, because the interviewers are going to talk about you after the interview. Okay, you're gonna loudest hacker in the world here. Hello, by the way. Hi, Estu, dude. Yeah, I do talk loud. I do tend to talk loud. But anyway, it gives you the interviewers are going to talk about you after the interview is over. That's the whole point. You're getting ahead of that by finding out what they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about any problems they had with you first and foremost. So you get, if you hear about those problems while you're still in the interview, you have a chance now to clarify. Okay? You have a chance now to clarify those issues. Okay? It also helps you iron out issues with your resume. It helps you make yourself better, more suitable candidate for future interviews and things like that. So that's what I really like that question. So I do recommend that one. Best interview questions. Let's say you offered me the position a year from now. What would I specifically done that would made you happy to have hired me? Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one, DeCroyson. I'm going to add that one to my list of interview questions to ask. And also, you should have a few questions prepared that are company specific. Indicate that you understand their company in some way, that you've done a bare minimum of research on their company, and that you know what you're getting yourself into. Have some company specific questions would be my recommendation. And also the standard things like, what's the day-to-day operations like? What would my life be like at your company? What's the work culture like? Do you like working there? Presumably the interviewer works there, right? Ask the interviewer, how long have you worked there? Do you enjoy it? Is that Neo Matrix running? Yeah, I have a little background on the stream that just, that with I have the Matrix background on the stream there. Chow Chan Chow, thank you for the follow. Okay, how do you deal with novel problems? Research. I mean, there's very few problems I'm going to run into that someone hasn't encountered somewhere. Like, you do run into problems like that, but not very often. So the first thing you're going to do is research and see if anyone else has run into the problem, okay? That's the first thing you're going to do. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to try to understand the things around the problem as much as possible, Okay? Understand if it's understand the moving parts of the problem. What systems are involved? What software is involved? Understand the systems and software around the problem as much as possible. Basically, it's research. Novel problems are solved by research, and then the critical thinking and the lateral thinking comes after. Research first. Know the enemy and know yourself. In 100 battles, you'll never be defeated. Okay? Research. Can you recommend certifications for beginners? If you're going into a pen testing position, OSCP is the best certification you can get as a beginner. Definitely. It's the most valuable on a resume. There are other good ones. There are definitely other really good ones out there. There are other really good certifications out there, but none of them have as much pull on a resume as OSCP does at this point in time. So I'm going to recommend OSCP to you. If you're a beginner who wants to go into a pen tester or a red teamer position, OSCP should be your goal first, in my opinion. What is your mother's maiden name? God, you're going to ask me my my security questions? No one uses security questions anymore, dude. It's all two-factor now. If you sued a former employer and settle out of court, is it necessary to disclose why you left? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. What do you fucking think I am, Clay Hacks? How many questions do you usually ask? Yeah, you don't overwhelm them with questions, but 2, 3, 4 questions are fine. 3 or 4 questions is probably a good range. I always ask for a walkthrough of the typical day with the tasks and very specific details on things should be done. That's going to break down if you're slipping into a position where the day-to-day tasks are going to shift a lot. Okay, so I'm not saying you shouldn't ask that. I'm just saying expect for them to kind of be like, well, some days we're not really sure what you're going to be doing on some days. It's kind of a new position or whatever. Expect them to get answers like that sometimes. I like to ask what they like about working there, what challenges they've had. That's a good one too. That's definitely a good one too. Shows interest in, like, it shows that you're thinking about the position, and it also shows what problems they've had with working there. It forces them to say something that they've bad. Well, it doesn't force them, but it specifically requests them to say something bad about where they work. What are the requirements to go for an OSCP certification? Do you need more than basic knowledge? No. I would say a basic knowledge of networking would be good. But OSCP is made for beginners. And I'd say it's as beginner-friendly now as it's ever been. So just hop in would be my recommendation. As the interviews get more senior, the interviews will gradually talk more about the future of the company compared with your past. Yeah, I get less and less technical questions because at this stage in my career, interviewers generally understand that I've been in here for a while, and I know how to do things. My resume pretty much speaks for itself, and the places I've worked speak for themselves. My professional experience speaks for themselves to some degree. So I don't really have to prove my technical wherewithal anymore as much, or like I do sometimes, but not as much. So you're going to get grilled less and less as you acquire that on-the-job experience because you have the experience. They're just going to assume you know stuff. What red flags have you encountered in an interview that put you off working for them? If the person, one of my pet peeves is when the interviewer, this is actually a really common one. It's not like a big red flag that would by itself put me off the company completely, but I hate it when the interviewer says, we're a family here at company name. Okay? Hate that. I can't stand it. This is a fucking job, okay? I'm not looking for another family. I have a family. I don't need one. Okay? I fucking hate it when corporations try to draw me in by saying that they're family. I hate that shit. It drives me nuts. I'm a job. You're paying me to do a job, okay? You're paying me. Just pay me. I'll do my job. Just pay me. That's as far as it goes, okay? I'm not saying you can't be friends with the people you work with, but corporations that are trying to say, well, we're really just a family here at company name. What they're really trying to do is try to inspire company loyalty to you that only benefits them and not you. Because they're not loyal to you. The company is never loyal to you. That has never been the case. They're loyal to wherever their profits are, okay? What if Vin Diesel is hiring you? Well, shit. I guess we are a family, Dodo Fett. God damn, I didn't anticipate that. What if Vin Diesel is hiring you? That's just again, if an interviewer said that we're like a family, a company, it wouldn't immediately put me off the company. What would put me off the company is if they then went on to talk about how great how absolutely incredible it is there, and they're so happy, and they've never had anything bad happen at company name. If they're just waxing on about how awesome the company is, that turns me off big time. That's a big red flag. I had that at Facebook. I interviewed with Facebook several years ago, while they were still Facebook and not Meta. And that's the kind of vibe I got. I got to their final round interview, and the kind of vibe I was getting was that everyone there is drinking the Kool-Aid, man. Everyone there thinks Facebook is absolutely the greatest thing on earth, and would not say anything negative about Facebook. Absolutely no one that I talked to that day would say anything negative about Facebook. That's when we still had interviews in person. I had an interview in person at Menlo Park. But Facebook is cancerous, IMO? Yeah, I agree. I even thought it was cancerous then. This was years ago. And I thought it was fucking horrible then. Well, not horrible. I was interviewing with them. But I was aware of the downsides of Facebook, that Facebook is not a great company. But it's a big company, so it felt like it was worth it to go through the interview at least. But everyone there was absolutely drinking the Kool-Aid. That's what we would have said in the military. Drinking the Kool-Aid is somebody who's really swept up in the culture of the military. It's the same thing in Facebook. I got that same feeling that everyone there is just in love with the fact that they work at Facebook. They absolutely love it there. It almost felt like a cult situation. So that turned me off of Facebook quite a bit. So that kind of thing is a big red flag to me. Because to me, I'm not looking for a second family, okay? I'm looking for a job. I mean, it feels, I hate it when they try to sell me on their corporate culture. Like, I don't want your culture to be toxic, but I also am not coming to you for your culture. I'm coming to you for the money that you can give me. I interviewed somewhere and everyone was exhausted looking, and they all kept talking about was how they're busy and tired and how many hours they were working. Guess what, Jay-Z? They would like they couldn't have been more clear if they wrote help me on their eyelids. If they wrote like help me on their eyelids and did some long blinks at you, they couldn't have been more clear that you shouldn't be hired, that you shouldn't take the job at that company. That's one notch shy of like being handed a note that said help us. Save us. Seriously, just don't. Yeah, watch out for that, okay? At this point in your career, would you still do a practical? Yeah. I do practicals all the time. If I'm interested in the company, I will do a practical, yeah. I get asked for them less and less, but typically for more sophisticated positions, they will ask for a little bit of a practical. Yeah, I would still take it if I was really interested in the position. Now it depends within reason. If the practical is within reason, I would take it. As in, if it's for a company I really want to work for, and if it's not taking up too much of my time. I had one company want me to take a whole penetration testing, in a penetration test in a simulated environment over 24 hours. And I'm like, so you basically want me to take an OSCP exam for you? No, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's just too much of a demand on my time. That's just too much to ask of me. It's disrespectful to me. It's not cool, dude. So I bowed out of that one. I didn't interview with them further. But if the practical is reasonable, then yeah. And I'm interested in the company, yeah. It's all a cost-benefit analysis for you. If the company's interesting to you, then yeah, do the practical. Do you know anybody got hired without the OSCP? Absolutely. You don't need the OSCP to get hired. People are just asking what the best certifications are, and for a pen testing and red teaming position, the OSCP brings the most value on a resume and the most value in your brain, in my experience. You'll always be my brother, yeah. All right, I'm trying to catch all of the questions. If I miss your question, please ask it again and at me instead. Is it rude to ask the turnover rate? No, it's not rude. It's not rude at all. Go ahead and ask the turnover rate. That's fine. A lot of them will be like new positions. A lot of jobs that you interview for are because they're trying to like fill out a new position. Like they're expanding their red team or something like that. So they might not have a great answer for you. But yeah, that's a perfectly fine answer to a question to ask. At this point in your career, would you still do... Yeah, I would still do a practical. I did answer that one. I had an interview where the two recruiters presented me in such a light that for them, everything is so perfect that I can't even fathom And then they asked them why do they go home and not live at the office if it's so perfect, and they choked. Yeah, again, it's just like, I hate that corporate culture bullshit. I'm never gonna buy into the corporate culture. So I'm just not that kind of person. So yeah. What is a practical? A practical is when, like, as part of an interview process, you'll be given some kind of a technical challenge to complete. It could be a coding challenge. I've had other ones where they'll have me pen test a website for them. I've had one where they sent me the source code of a hypothetical web application and asked me to perform an open source, perform a code review to find the vulnerabilities. I had one where they sent me a service. The service is binary. The service, a DLL that the service was loading, and its associated configuration information. Like, they had text documents that were full of PowerShell output surrounding that service on a hypothetical host, and that kind of thing. Like on the file system permissions, service permissions, the service configuration, so on and so forth. And they asked me to point out as many vulnerabilities as I could. That was an example of one I got. I've had one where they had me, they sent me a VM and had me pen test that whole thing, a whole VM. I did one of those on stream, like a year ago. I did, like, a guy sent me an interview challenge that he got from, was it Optiv? I think from Optiv. He sent me an interview challenge I think they got from Optiv. It might have been Optiv, it might have been something else. But I'm sure the challenge is different now. But they sent me a whole, he sent me a whole VM. And I did it on stream in front of all you guys. I was not interviewing for Optiv. He was. And he was done interviewing, actually. And he said he couldn't complete the challenge. So he wanted to know if I could do better. So he sent me the thing, and I rooted it in like 2 hours. If it was Jenkins into Docker and a breakout, it was Optiv. That does sound accurate, yeah. That does sound accurate, Agent Cell. Are they still doing it? Fuck. I'm sorry, Optiv. Listen, Optiv, my man. If you're listening, I'm sorry. If you're still doing that shit, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spoil your interview challenge. It is different now? Okay, good, because it'd be kind of weird if they were doing the same thing still. But yeah, that does, if I remember right, that was what it was. I like to ask why the previous people left the position, and usually I get honest answers and helps a lot. Yeah, that is helpful. For these exams, is the lab access a physical location, or is the exam all online? You don't, like, the exam is all online, OSCP. You don't have to go anywhere in person. It is proctored, though, like, as in someone will be watching you on a webcam. Is there any projects completed or in process that would be valuable to mention in an interview for a pen test job? Depends. Is it pen testing related? Are you like, did you find some new CVE? Did CVE develop a proof of concept for it? Are you doing any scripting or programming in your spare time? Are you developing any tools? If so, then yeah. If it's pen testing related, fuck yeah, it's valuable to mention that stuff on an interview. Fuck yeah, it's relevant. Metcon, I'm at a sysadmin for 4 years now, interested in getting into security. I've seen a lot of bad IT teams and practices. Any tips to recognize such stuff before I take the job? I've wasted too much time without expert at my site. Well, I don't work in IT. I work in security. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question. I can just point to security issues that I see a lot caused by lazy IT teams. I would say a big red flag for me at a company is if you point out a security issue and it doesn't get addressed ever. Like, they just never address it. They either tell you that it's going to be addressed at some point and then just never do, or they just don't ever address it and don't ever give you a good reason why. I'd say that's a pretty big red flag, but I can't really speak to a general IT thing because I don't work in IT. I'm a penetration tester. Got a link to that stream? I think the VOD, I don't think the VOD is around anymore, unfortunately. I think I have it somewhere on my machine, but I'm not sure where it is. It was an old stream. It was early on in my streaming situation. He's asking about what's the company budget for professional development to improve. Yeah, it's fine. That's real good. Yeah, because especially in the IT security world, you're expected to do professional development. So hearing that they're going to support you, they should be supporting you. They benefit from your professional development. So yeah, asking that question is perfectly fine. Did he get the job? I don't think so. I don't know. What technical questions do you like to ask when you're asked to assist a technical interview? Do you like to ask when you're asked to assist a technical interview? Depends on the what I'm interviewing people for. But typically, I do what I've gotten in other red team assessments. I ask scenario-based questions. I'll give them a hypothetical assessment that they're on, and I'll see how they handle the scenario-based question. And if I want to zero in on any particular aspect of the their answer to get more detail, then I'll do that. This will be left as a VOD? Yeah, it'll be a VOD. Do you think that pen testing will still be in high demand 30 years from now? Absolutely yes. As long as humans are still writing code, pen testing will still be in high demand 30 years from now. Probably even after that. Do you think that knowing foreign language can be beneficial to our pen testing? It definitely can't hurt you. It definitely can't hurt you. Especially if you work for a company that's international. Absolutely knowing foreign languages can help you. For sure. It definitely can't hurt you to know a foreign language. For sure. Alright, I think we're caught up on questions. What other questions you guys got? We're just doing like an open-ended stream where we're talking about this stuff. We could do something else if you guys wanted to. We're not doing any hacking that we typically do today. We could do some marbles. What do you guys think? Marbles, Stream Raiders. Are you going to do this format of a stream in the future? If I get good feedback and it's positive feedback, then yeah, I'll do it again. Doing a lot of TryHackMe machines provides enough knowledge to go for OSCP? Oh, definitely, yeah. Definitely, yes. After they asked me to hack a satellite, they asked me what my favorite color was. I mean, sometimes they're going to ask questions out of left field like that. I guess just do your best with them. Like, I can't prepare you for every question that you're going to be asked. What happened to the NIM video? It's still coming. My editor has really been overloaded with work. She sent me a final cut last night, but there are some issues with it, so I sent it back to her. I'm hoping that she'll get it. She'll finish it up tonight, and I can upload it either tonight or tomorrow. But it's definitely coming. Explain the main difference between Cobalt Strike's execute assembly and a beacon object file. So execute assembly does the fork and run technique, meaning it's going to start a new process subsidiary to your Cobalt Strike beacon process. And then it's going to load the CLR into it and execute a .NET assembly in there. That's how execute assembly works. A beacon object file is basically a modification of the beacon itself. You've added new code to the beacon itself, and that beacon object file is run in the context of the beacon process itself. So that would be the difference there. We could hack support on Hack the Box. I started but kind of stuck on the Privesk. I cannot do active boxes on Hack the Box. How much do you use Cobalt Strike? At every commercial red team position I've been in, we've used Cobalt Strike. But that doesn't mean they're using it everywhere. Cobalt Strike does not have a beacon for Linux, and it doesn't have a beacon for Mac. So in a predominantly Linux and Mac environment, you wouldn't be using Cobalt Strike. You'd probably be using something like Mythic. How much do you use a Cobalt Strike daily? If I'm on an assessment, I'm using it every day. If I'm not on an assessment, I'm only using it for like testing purposes. Do you have any advice on how to prepare for the OSEP? Do the course. Do the course. Make sure you understand it. Do all the exercises. I mean, it's not cosmic, dude. It's not cosmic. Do all the exercises. Do the extra miles if you can. And then I'd say you're ready for the exam. If you understand all that stuff, you've done all that stuff, you're ready for the exam. Version of Cobalt Strike was the first version you ever used? I don't know. One of the 4.0s. One of the early 4s, I think, maybe. Have you tried Sliver? I've never tried it myself. I've heard good things about it. I really need to start playing around with it. I really, really need to start playing around with it. I just haven't gotten around to it. What's your next goal in your security career? I'm pretty much where I want to be for the foreseeable future. Like, I want to, not necessarily in the job I want to be, but in the overall position I want to be. I plan to stay a hands-on red teamer for a couple more years. Maybe get more sophisticated, get into more sophisticated programs where I can continue to learn more things. Eventually, I'll be put out to pasture from the keyboard, and I'll probably move into some kind of an administrative role, like a CISO role or something like that. I do want to move into a leadership role eventually, but I want to be in a leadership role in like a security company that I like, and where I feel like I'm going to be able to do a lot of good. So yeah, right now I'm where I need to be right now, I think. Hello from Texas. Hey, from Texas. I used to live in San Antonio, Thunderstorm. I hope you're having a good time. I hope the power's on there in Texas. I hear you have some problems if it gets too hot or too cold. OSEP is based heavily on C#, but you don't have to do it in C#. They just use C# to show you the Windows API. OSEP is really focused on Win32 above everything else. Above everything else, OSEP is focused on Win32. Not C#, Win32. It's all the Win32 is not C#, C# is not Win32. When we talk about Win32, we're talking about the Windows API. C# is valuable because it's easy to read and easy to code, and it can call the Windows API very simply. So that's why they use C#. It's also used for, it's also very valuable for Windows environments, though it is cross-platform technically. .NET Core is, does run on Linux. So, if you're a little bit of experience in C# will help you, but again, C# is only used in the in OSEP, to my knowledge, with the idea that you're going to be calling the Windows API. How much time would you set aside to study for OSCP if you've been studying cybersecurity at a university and have CompTIA Security Plus? Depends on how much keyboard time you have, No Limit Fitness. You're not telling me, like, those things are not telling me how much keyboard time you have. What do I mean by keyboard time? I mean actually taking your hands and placing them on the keyboard. I don't care how much time you spend in a class. There's value to learning the theory about how computers work and how security works and all that stuff that Security Plus teaches you. I've taken Security Plus, but Security Plus has no keyboard time. There's no practical. I would recommend you do some TryHackMe. Do some TryHackMe, and that'll help you to assess how ready you are for OSCP. Are you working on other... By the way, you can still ask me interview questions. We haven't moved off of the interview question premise. You can still ask me anything you want. I'm answering any questions that you guys got. But if you guys got interview questions, I'm here answering them as well. Are you working on any other tutorials right now? I hope it's the Python series. I wasn't working on anything while I was sick. I do have some ideas for videos. I think I want to do a more in-depth introduction into the Windows API. I want to start cutting my YouTube videos down a little bit in length because every time I make a YouTube video, it ends up being too long. So I have to start cutting it down. I definitely want to start doing... I think for the Python series, I'll do like how to code a simple reverse shell. And then how to code an HTTP shell. And stuff like that in an HTTP Trojan in Python and stuff like that. I'll show you how to do that. I can do a video on that here pretty soon. Feel like this is an AMAA. It's kind of turned into that, which is fine. What about body language? What do you mean, what about body language? What do you mean, what about body language? If you're in an interview, set up straight. I mean, there's nothing cosmic here. Sit up straight. Ideally, what I like to do, I'm tempted just because I'm human, to look at the picture of somebody, of the person, but remember that remember that they're seeing what's in your camera. So ideally, you want to be looking at your camera. What I like to do is just to put the window of the person close to the camera that's looking at me, so it basically looks like I'm looking at them. Like right now, I'm looking at the picture of myself in Streamlabs, but it looks like I'm looking into the camera because because you can't really tell the difference. So do that. Make sure, try to be looking into the camera. Sit up straight. Gesticulate with your hands. The normal things that you would do. Not in like a nervous way, but try to be relaxed. Try to indicate that you're relaxed. Sit up straight, but be relaxed. Have you ever been asked to do something you felt unethical, but was considered in scope? Nope. Not really. Never been asked that. Also pretty similar to PowerShell syntax. That's not a good thing. But yeah, you are correct. What types of metrics are used for measuring a team's performance for a red team? How do you use metrics for guiding growth in your team? Like, for performance? It depends on the red team that you're talking about. If you're talking about a consulting red team, like for a consulting practice, it's how happy the client is. It's just how happy the client is with the report that you produce. Were you able to produce significant vulnerabilities to make it worth the client's while to hire you? As long as the client is happy with what you did, that's the only metric you really need to care about. For an internal red team, you want to make sure your red team is producing, is finding vulnerabilities, producing valid assessments, and training your blue team on new emergent threats and things like that. It's a little bit more abstract, but yeah, it's going to be. My point is simply to say that it's going to be a little bit different, depending on what kind of a red team you're on. I target to get a red team job at my company. Oh, great. Any suggestions for a good strategy? Just make it clear to your superiors that you want to be red team. Make it very clear to them, and make sure they don't forget it. Make sure it's constantly brought up that you want to move to the red team. Don't like badger them with it, but make sure that they're constantly aware that you want to move to red team and you haven't changed your mind on that fact. So keep that in mind. Make it very clear where you want to move, and look for try to interact with the people that are already on that team as much as possible. If you have an excuse to take a project that has to do with the red team, then take it. Make friends with the people over there. Make them want to have you on their team. Demonstrate what you can do. Demonstrate what you can know, and that's gonna be the best way that you're gonna be able to pivot within a company. How hard is it to get an interview without networking? I mean, if you have OSCP and/or professional experience, recruiters are gonna reach out. As long as your LinkedIn and your Indeed and your Glassdoor and your whatever is all filled out, recruiters are going to reach out to you. So you can get an interview without networking, but I definitely recommend networking. What would you do if you were in a pen test in a live production environment, found evidence of an active intrusion that wasn't you? That's happened to me before. What I would do is immediately stop the penetration test. I immediately stop what I'm doing, and I contact the client and tell them what I found. And said, "Do you know about this?" If so, if you don't know about this, and if this is something that alarms you, we need to stop this test immediately, because there's going to be problems with deconfliction if you don't. We need to stop this test immediately, and then you want to be willing and helpful to participate in any incident response things that happen as a result of that. So that's what you should do. Immediately stop what you're doing and alert whoever's in control of the asset in question. Assume your current operational process has an EDR DLL sideloaded into it. What are some methods to blind the EDR, ensure it can't interview with your current process? So you can use some of Microsoft's own security protections against them. Oh God, I was reading about this just recently. What do they call the setting? There's a couple of settings you can do to prevent processes from loading DLLs that are. You can set there are certain protections you can place on a process that it literally is not allowed to load executables that are not signed Microsoft DLLs. In most cases, that's going to blind the EDR. If you start up a malicious process and it can't load the EDR process, guess what? EDR can't see it. And EDR, the last thing EDR wants to do is prevent a valid process from running, okay? So it's going to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's not just going to prevent a process from running even though it can't see what it's doing, okay? Because people will get pissed. People get pissed when their shit doesn't work, don't they? Like, and if the EDR is preventing their shit from working, their valid programs from working, companies get pissed, employees get pissed. So EDRs have to run a fine line between protecting and not not annoying the employee as much as possible, because then the company might drop their EDR and then they don't make any money. So, yeah. So. Yeah, there you go, Husky. Thank you. It's a long fucking name, so I can't remember. But there you go. There's two settings that you can place. You can block non-Microsoft. There's two settings you can place. It is a mouthful. That's why I couldn't remember it. But I'm aware that those security protections exist. And it prevents it from loading the DLL. It will not work for every EDR, though. Okay? Notably, I think CrowdStrike, Husky, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're the resident authority on CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike's EDR DLL is actually signed by Microsoft, I think. So it won't stop them. It won't stop CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike does not allow this to happen. Yeah. So they're an outlier in this case. They are an outlier in this case. And also Cobalt Strike will not run with these mitigations set. I don't know. There's something there's something that Cobalt Strike does under the hood that does not like where it does not like these mitigations set. But it's good to know that these mitigations do exist. CrowdStrike's DLL is signed by Microsoft, so it will still be loaded with these memory protections. Okay, what questions have I missed? Do you feel like public LinkedIn profiles increase the attack surface of companies? No, that's pretty normal. I mean, it does increase their attack. It does increase their attack surface, to be clear. But it's everything is risk and reward in security. You like companies need to have a presence on social media because that's what's expected of them in these days. So it does increase their attack surface, but what are they going to do about it? They have to exist in and do normal company things. Is it realistic to try for a pen testing role as my first job in cybersecurity? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, that's realistic. As long as I would just recommend you get OSCP, you do try hack me, you do hack the box, and I would expect that with those things that you'd be able to get an entry level job in pen testing. I'm a programmer with a good amount of freelance web development experience. What's the best project I can do to be competitive with security roles? Ideally, red team, but anything headed that way. Try hack me and hack the box. That's where you can start right now. Get security related certifications. Okay, in that order. Start doing pen testing stuff in your spare time, red team stuff in your spare time, learning more about it. Do hack the box. Do try hack me. Maintain a GitHub with like POCs of exploits and tools that you develop and stuff like that. All of that can be really beneficial to you. And then get certifications. After those things are set up, get certifications. You're on a pen test engagement, you discover something that should be reported to law enforcement. Does this nullify any NDA? No, I mean, just stop what... honestly, I'm not a lawyer, okay? Again, I'm not the person to ask here. I feel like people are trying to ask me incriminating questions. I'm not a lawyer, okay? What I would do in that situation is immediately stop what I'm doing, notify the client, okay? Immediately stop what I'm doing and notify the client. Find out what they have to say about it, okay? Is it okay if there's asked if there's anything in the budget for security? Yeah, that's perfectly fine to ask for if there's anything in the budget about cybersecurity conventions like DEF CON. Totally fine. I ask that almost every time. It usually boils down to a set of hex chars that you can specify in your code. You set it to set in the Win API. Yeah, you're setting some certain process execution flags. Pretty easy to do. It's honestly pretty easy to do. It's just a couple of API calls. But you should be aware of the implications. Would red teams typically be under the InfoSec department or a completely different? Yeah, they'd be under InfoSec. How often do you encounter clients with very out-of-date antivirus and EDR solutions? Pretty commonly, especially on like old servers, like old like Windows 7 servers and things like that. Pretty common. I sideloaded a non-signed DLL into a signed Microsoft binary today, and no one got an alert on it. I mean, interesting. Really? A non-signed deal. Oh, you mean like without that protection set? I actually think you can actually still call load library. I think even if a binary has that set, you can still call load library in it. I think it doesn't prevent you from running load library and loading a new DLL into the process. It's just at process start, it's not allowed to load any DLLs, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. I'd have to do some more research. Besides hardening your passwords and doing better hashing algorithms, what can be done to protect a Windows environment from Kerber roasting attacks? GMSAs. Group managed service accounts are good. Set group managed service accounts on as many of them as you can. That'll change the password regularly to a really strong password. Other than that, it's just real strong passwords. Have really strong passwords and set up detections. Typically, what people will detect on, they'll either put in a honeypot service that isn't actually in use, but there's an account that has a spin, and if it gets Kerber roasted, you know, if a ticket is requested for it, you know that somebody has triggered a Kerber roast. Or just look for a lot of the Kerber roasting Windows event all in a row. Set up alerts and detections for Kerber roast. And make the passwords really strong. Can you recommend a course way to get up to speed with the Windows OS? Been using mostly Mac OS Linux for the last 10 years. Been winning Windows now to do daily things, but I need to speed up. Do Hack the Box and try Hack Me, I would say. And also, like just learning how Windows works. I mean, that's just going to be, if you want to learn how Windows works from like a penetration testing standpoint, you just need to expose yourself to more Windows machines. It's just a matter of exposing yourself to more Windows machines. Try learning the Win32 API. Try learning PowerShell and C#. I don't know if you're a programmer or whatever, but if you are, those languages will definitely require you to learn some Windows and how it works. Would you say Hack the Box is overkill? No. Hack the Box is great. Can I mess with the mindset you have? No. I would not say that. I would say that Hack the Box isn't terribly realistic, but that doesn't mean it's useless. Unrealistic doesn't necessarily mean useless. You definitely improve you can definitely improve your skills on Hack the Box without it being in a realistic environment. If you were an interviewer, what would you like your interviewer to be like? I mean, it depends on the position I'm interviewing for. Am I interviewing that person for an entry-level position, or am I interviewing that person to be my teammate on a red team? These are different things. There's not one particular thing that I'd look for interviewing for a position. I would expect someone to be more like me. To be like me. I'd want it to be someone I would want to work with, and someone who ideally has comparable knowledge level to me, but hopefully knows more than me in some areas, so that they can teach me on the job and I can teach them in some ways. What's your answer to the following question? What boxes have you done on TryHackMe Hack the Box? Like a fucking million? My answer is I'm a live streamer. I've done a million of those goddamn things. Like a fucking million of them. Like, just be honest. Like, your answer should be, your answer should be, just be honest and try to ballpark the number of boxes you've done on TryHackMe or Hack the Box. If you haven't done any, be honest about that. Yeah, writes down like a fucking million of them. Yeah. But if they asked me that question, I would say I do them on stream like 3 times a week. So, yeah, I've done a lot. I do them on stream 3 times a week, and most weeks I do the new active box on Saturdays. So, yeah, I've done a lot of them. Okay. What's your answer to the... how often have you gotten in with misconfigured MSSQL? Very common. MSSQL is the most common database I see. The most common database structure that you'll see in CTFs is MySQL, but the most common that I see in real life is MSSQL. Easy. And I'd say it's like a 50-50 as to whether or not XPCMD shell is going to be... I'm going to be able to either activate XPCMD shell or get code execution in some way. And from there, be able to start testing the rest of the environment. Have you ever red team or penetration tested a smart card only environment? No. At that point, you're talking about ADCS, which has its own range of vulnerabilities. But you would definitely want to start researching ADCS. Can you run DN Spy on Kali? I don't actually know. Like on Windows, you don't even install it. You just download a zip file and load a pre-compiled executable that's inside the zip. That's it. Like, you don't even really install it on Windows. I don't actually know if DN Spy will run on Kali. Let me find out. If it does, it might work on .NET Core, but I somehow doubt it will run on Kali. You might just at least need a virtual machine. DN Spy Net Framework might work in the releases. DN Spy is very useful. I deeply recommend it. Yeah, you can. By the looks of things, I think you can. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not. No, that's a PowerShell script. Never mind. Wiki. There's a wiki? Okay, there is not a wiki. Oh, wait. No, there is a wiki. Okay, hang on. My guess is it will not run on Linux. You'll need to at least run it in a virtual machine. I run it on my Macintosh in a virtual machine. Just get a just spin up a Windows virtual machine and run it in there. Win32 API cheat sheet. That's super helpful. I'll put that in the Necronomicon. That seems pretty good. I'll put that in the Necronomicon. Thank you. Okay. Say for a junior pen tester job? If I was interviewing a junior pen tester, I'd like to see that they had OSCP. Or that they were working on OSCP. But it's not necessarily a deal breaker. If they had PNPT or something like that, I would want to see a hands-on cert. If a junior pen tester is coming to me and they have like Security Plus, CEH, CISP, and stuff like that, these non-hands-on certifications, I'm going to be asking them specifically if they do try Hack Me and Hack the Box, and if so, what I'm going to be asking them what challenges they've come across recently. Can you describe a box you've done recently and what it was like, what you did on it? Because chances are I've probably fucking done it, and I can tell if they're right or not. I'm also going to be grilling them on technical questions, like hands-on technical questions, because I don't know if they have the hands-on. If they're doing a junior, when you say a junior pen tester, I'm assuming you mean like that's going to be hands-on and do actual pen testing things, not hitting enter on Nessus, which is the Air Force's idea of a junior penetration tester, and a senior penetration tester. Yeah, hands-on experience is what I'm looking for. If not like on the job, then either in certs or on TryHackMe, Hack the Box. When it comes to learning, it seems TryHackMe and Hack the Box are always recommended. Yeah, they're good for learning. Any suggestions on learning that deviates from commonly used training platforms? Over the Wire Bandit's real good. Over the Wire is really good. Just in general. VulnHub is good. Proving Grounds is good. Again, with penetration testing, that hands-on experience is hard to replicate. And you need to be able to demonstrate. It's one thing to be able to talk about what cross-site scripting is and to be able to talk about what server-side request forgery is and what all these things are. It's another thing entirely to sit down and actually exploit them in real time. Okay? So, you need to do something hands-on. Okay? Pen Tester Lab is also good. I recommend Pen Tester Lab. Can someone link the Necronomicon? It's on my Patreon. It is, it's routinely updated and uploaded to Patreon. What does your work look like when you're not in an active engagement or writing a report for a past engagement? I'm either in meetings, like scoping calls. I'm in development, like I'm developing new tools for next engagements and new tools for infrastructure and so on. Those are the most common things that I'm doing. I'm setting up for the next engagements. Tool deb is a big part of what I do when I'm not on an active engagement or writing a report. 80 to 90% of the time, I'm going to be doing tool dev. Oh, DNS. I spend a fucking enormous amount of time categorizing DNS fucking shit. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite things, and I really can't automate it. That's the worst part. I want to be able to automate it, but it's really hard to automate. But DNS categorization takes up a lot of my time. What is DNS shit? Let me explain. So when you're a red teamer, you have to have C2 domains. You have to have domains that your beacons are going to call back to, right? You can't have it just call back to IP addresses, okay? That sticks out like a sore thumb. You got to have DNS domains that are calling back to it. And so various defensive measures like Cisco Umbrella, EDR products, Splunk, and even active blue teamers will, if they find a weird domain, like a domain they don't recognize, they're going to check to see if that domain is suspicious. If the domain was, for example, not categorized, as in domains are assigned a categorization by various web filters that tell roughly what that domain is focused around, like finance or health and fitness or medicine, like healthcare, medicine, online meetings, things like that. Okay, things like that. These categories are assigned by a wide variety of different filters, like Blue Coat, Palo Alto. I don't know. I don't have my list in front of me. I have a whole list of ones to set. Symantec. I think Symantec actually owns Blue Coat. Whatever. McAfee. McAfee or McAfee. I don't think anyone knows how it's actually pronounced. Okay. Guy's dead. Who cares? Anyway. The domain needs to be aged. Okay. So domains are like wine. Okay. Domains are like wine. You don't want to have a wine you're not drinking the wine right after it came out of the grape, okay? You want that seasoned fine wine, okay? You want that nice wine that's been fermenting for a while, okay? That's where the real good wine is, right? That's what it's like with domains, okay? Domains look really suspicious if they are recently made. If they are new domains, they're suspicious. So you need to be thinking ahead as a red teamer. You need to be thinking ahead and buying new domains that are like, it's always like Azure Cloud Edge portal or something. Like something ideally that sounds like Microsoft-y or sounds like something that a corporate piece of software would be calling out to. Stuff like that. Particularly if you typically sideload into the Teams process. If you typically sideload into the Teams process, you want like Cloud Azure Portal Edge or something like that. Okay, you need to set up categorization. So you need to get that domain categorized in a certain way. Ideally, in most cases, I go for finance, and that's for a couple of other reasons I won't go into. At this moment. But you want to make sure the domain is categorized. Uncategorized domains are weird. That means the domain is new and it could be suspicious. So you want it to be categorized in some kind of safe category. You definitely don't want it to be a suspicious categorization. I saw Microsoft. A lot of protections. There will be a lot of protections for like simple typo squatting, ones like that these days. But yeah, you'll still see them sometimes. Ideally, you'll set up like if you have a little bit more time, you'll set up like a website or something, or you'll do a domain redirect from your domain to one that looks legitimate. Like if you're, I don't know, onlinemeetingsgo.com or something. If that's your domain, onlinemeetingsgo.com, redirect to a legitimate like online meetings website, like redirect to Zoom or something. That's one thing you can do. Also, set an A record for if you set an A record, ideally for like a website, okay? Like a website with simple content that looks normal to somebody that might come snooping, okay? All this takes time, okay? All the stuff that I'm mentioning here takes time. It takes dev time. It's fucking annoying, okay? It's annoying. We all fucking hate it. But this is one of the most important aspects to being a red teamer, honestly. One of the most important aspects to not getting detected on an engagement is having proper aged, categorized domains that you're using for C2. Okay, so it's annoying. Everybody fucking hates it, but I have to spend a lot of my time on it. So it's either that or it's C2 dev usually, or it's dev of some kind. That I'm doing when I'm not actively on an engagement or writing a report. Does that make sense? I like how you neutered that domain. That's always stuff like it is right there. Whenever I'm buying new domains, it's always like Azure Cloud Edge portal or portal azurelive.com or something. Like it sounds silly, but that is genuinely what I do. Okay? That is genuinely what I'm trying to do. Because typo squatting is too suspicious these days. Sometimes if I'm trying to go for like a targeted fish on an organization, and I'm like, and I want to go for like a typo squat on their name, if there's an M in the name, I might swap it for an R and an N. Like sometime type an M and then type an R and an N underneath of it, and then look at it from a decent distance away, like I don't know, in a URL bar. And tell me you can tell the difference at a glance between an M and an R and an N next to each other. You can't. It looks really, and especially in a URL bar, it's very difficult to see the difference, and certainly not at a glance. So that's a good typo squat that I'll usually do. Setting up your red team infrastructure with telemetry. Oh, yeah. We have a whole thing for that. We have a whole wrapper around our C2, around our Cobalt Strike. A lot of the commands that we execute in Cobalt Strike aren't actually executed in the Cobalt Strike window. They're executed using the Cobalt Strike's built-in API. And we're executing them from a Python tool that we use in our internal environment. And because it does really good logging. It does really, really good logging and ties every action that we take to various common points of compromise. It makes it much easier to do the reporting. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Is it okay to answer red teamer if the company you're applying to only does pen tests and no red team assessments? Yeah, you could say that ideally I'd like to work my way towards a red team position. It's okay for them to know exactly where you'd like to end up. Like in 5 years, they might be doing red team assessments. There's a lot of money in red team assessments. Red team assessments can charge a lot for those, because typically it's more wealthy companies that are asking for them, more robust companies, and they get to charge more time. Red team assessments take more time than pen testers, so they get to bill more. So they might be doing red team assessments by then. It doesn't hurt at all to make the company very aware that you want to move to a red team assessment, okay? Some of your hosts are in the cloud, some should be on-prem. I would never ever put a team server in the cloud. No, we have redirectors in the cloud, and our team servers are on-prem. There's no real reason to have a team server in the cloud. That would be on top of a gigantic OPSEC infraction. It's not even necessary. Just have redirectors in the cloud. It's extremely risky to put a team. Yeah, it's not good. This is why we defang our URLs here. What do you mean by defang? To claim clear up defang. I think if I missed your question, please ask it again and at me this time, so that I make sure to get everybody's answers in. You can suggest that you start an effort to get the company into a red team. Yeah, you can do that. Say that, like, ask the company, like, are they wanting to move into red team assessments once the team is more robust and sophisticated? And I just, yeah, make it clear that you're okay with just doing penetration tests for right now. But, like, you know, in 5 years, I think it's reasonable in 5 years to say you want to be a red teamer, regardless of what your current company is doing. How important is it to be in country in red team exercises? Not important. It's not important at all. There's plenty of ways to simulate being in that country anyway. Is going for a cloud cert worth it? Sure. Cloud security is really important. Preferably a cloud security certification if you're going for a security position, but yeah, cloud is not going away. Oh, making a URL unclickable. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that does make sense. Okay. It's not just yeah, that does make sense. It's not just for clicking, it's for like redirecting. Yeah. It depends on what your vector is. You need to plan out a vector and have a domain that works for that vector, okay? When I do hack the box and TryHackMe's, sometimes I can't solve them. I mostly can't reach the server user flag, and when I read the write-ups, I'm like, I knew that. Any recommendations? First of all, it's really easy to see the solution to a puzzle if you already know the solution. Like, if you know the solution to this is why a magician will never tell you how they do their tricks, because the mystery is gone then. Like it's just a cheap trick and you know how it's done. That's not any good. And it's the same with puzzles. If you're trying to work out a puzzle, knowing the solution is going to make it look obvious every time. That's always the way it is. I would say try to just tough it out. Try to tough it out, Tachanka the Savior. Try to tough it out. Listen, the Krogan were not known for giving up on things. Did you know the Krogan as a race that just kind of gives up on shit? Like, fuck no, dude. Fuck no. Even like bio warfare couldn't keep the Krogan down. Okay? So get your ass like just try to be a little bit more. My recommendation would be try to be a little bit more persistent, I guess I would say. Because you're not always going to have a walkthrough. You're not always going to be able to look at a walkthrough in the real world. You're going to have to just troubleshoot and figure stuff out. Any suggestions for certs post ECPPT? Yeah, OSCP. I think that's why I got alerts at 2 a.m. from our recent red team engagement. I don't know what that was in response to, unfortunately. 99% of the time it's because I'm stuck in the CTFs because one small thing that I looked at but still missed. Yeah, that's always the way it is. It's always something small and stupid. And you need to be prepared to deal with that. That's what hacking is. You got to be prepared to deal with that. You're not always going to have a walkthrough in real life. Interview question I like to ask, what does responsible, safe red teaming mean to you? It's all about scoping, my dude. It's all about scoping. I work in the consulting world, so I'm just concerned about making the client happy. Making sure the client is happy with the service I provided for them. In the consulting world, that's all I have to care about. In an internal red teaming position, we have a different discussion to have, right? So keep in mind that the answer to that question is going to vary depending on the kind of job you're looking for. But in the consulting world, it's all about proper scoping. On the internal red team side, it's all about proper scoping, and it's about proper communication with the blue team where necessary to make sure that deconfliction is possible. I would and on just generally good communication. I would recommend formalizing your process of triage and using the scientific method to cut the challenge up into pieces that you answer individually. Yeah, that makes sense. I recommend looking at write-ups for small hints and not full walkthroughs. That's my recommendation of how to handle write-ups with regard to pen testing, like TryHackMe or Hack the Box. I want to be a pen tester as well. How are you? Hey, you're in the right place. We typically do pen testing on this stream, Pear Slayer. Today we're not doing it. I don't just talk at you the whole time. Typically, what I would do is I hack in front of you. I do Hack the Box and TryHackMe and Proving Grounds usually, right in front of you. So if you want to see pen testing, this is the right stream for that. Sprado, thank you for the follow. Cthulhu fought into you, my friend. And walk through the box I'm working on. Yeah, I see that a lot. That happens from time to time. I'm gonna make a fake walkthrough and I'd hack my network and yeah, there you go. That's one way of doing it. There's a lot of talk about how to prep for a cyber job, but what are your recommendations for keeping your mental health in check? You just got to avoid burnout. You got to keep burnout and imposter syndrome in check. Burnout and imposter syndrome are the biggest mental health issues for me, anyway. It's just about making sure you have something in your life other than hacking. Something in your life to focus on that's not penetration testing. Get away from the screen as often as when you can. That's a good one. Scoping and supervised external pen test customer went south because it wasn't scoped properly. The company never got another dime from us. Yeah, scoping is very important. But the onus is on you to scope it properly. You as the security professional. Yeah, make sure you're aggressive in your scoping. Who's that plus-size supermodel? Excuse you. Fucking rude. Fucking rude. There's no need. There was no need for that. Just out of nowhere, plus-sized, at most, she's a size 0. Okay? At most. I'm protecting her dignity. Maybe do a really quick one before you go today? We could potentially do one. It would have to be a quick one. Do you have a general checklist of questions you go through while scoping? Yeah, we can do it. We can do a quick one.
What are you doing, step bro?
If we're gonna, do we want to do a box? Do we want to do a quick box? I'm okay with doing a quick box, as long as that's what people want to do. Agent T on TryHackMe. I think I've done that one, unfortunately. We'll do a hack. We'll do a TryHackMe machine. I'm most confident that that's going to be. Okay, let's decide on a box then. Keep asking your questions, but if we're going to do a box, we should decide on one. 1 second. Let me get logged in to TryHackMe. Is solving boxes some sort of drug for you? No. I do it for the content, my dude. Honestly, as a red teamer, the amount of benefit you get from these boxes for your main job is limited. I'm not saying the boxes are useless and that I hate them. I definitely do not. But, hi, honey. I know, sweetie. I know. I'm not saying that boxes are useless or that you shouldn't do them as a red teamer. I'm just saying that for your main job, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of web app pen testing as a red teamer. Red teamers require a lot of skills that aren't really covered by CTFs very well. You saying hi to the stream? You showing yourself? They all said you were super skinny. Yes, they said your size 00. All of chat's is saying that. Yes. So don't worry. Don't worry. There's nobody in chat anymore that was saying anything bad. Yes. Committed is pretty quick too. The committed sounds good. I remember we've been looking at that one for a few weeks now. Okay. Go over there. There you go. Hang out next to the laptop. There you go. I know, sweetie. I know. 1 second. I'll be right with you. I guess this is one benefit of doing a stream sitting down, that she can kind of get involved. She likes to be involved. God damn it. How many times am I going to mess up my password? Honestly, I should just change my password to password123. Why does it even matter if my TryHackMe account gets cracked? There we go. Finally logged in. Let's go over to this. Okay. Can you do the Python for pen testers room, please? Well, we're not gonna do a whole, like, we typically do challenges. It has to be a quick one for today. Because this stream typically we spend all our time doing this stuff. But today I decided to do something a little bit different. Oh my god. Stop. I decided to do something a little bit different, just to see how it turns out. Just trying out new things. New stream. Okay. Let's do search. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see it. There we go. Let's do challenges. Newest. Okay. This is a Windows box. I feel like we've done this one recently, but I don't remember it. Are there any API hacking boxes? I mean, there's quite a few of them that'll have APIs. To some degree. Committed was recommended. Dig Dug for some DNS stuff. IDE seems reasonable. We did Node.js deserialization last time. I don't remember what box it was, but whatever box we did was definitely Node.js deserialization. Just looking for something. This one seems to have Python related. JPEG chat. Let's do that one. Or let's see how that one. Let's put that one into the running, I mean. I know, sweetie. Yes, you're very cute. Yes. And we'll put Archangel in there too. All right, get your votes in. Any roadmap or something like that for red teaming? Move into try to do network penetration tests as much as possible. Red teams are not too far off from network penetration tests. Become very familiar with Active Directory, and start researching like antivirus and AV EDR evasion. Start researching things like how DNS works, how various methods of C2 and exfiltration. That's the kind of stuff that's that'll help you with the red team stuff. Do the malware dev in NIM box. Again, I have a YouTube video coming out. It's just taking a little bit longer than I'd expected. We got a YouTube video coming out where we are going to make malware in NIM, I promise. It's just taking a little bit longer than I expected. Hey, honey. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's my sweetie. My good sweetie. Oh, she wants to sit in my lap. Okay. Come here, honey. There you go. That's good. Settle down. If you're going to be there, you have to sit down. Lay down. There you go. Okay, she's entering loaf mode. That's good. There you go. And of course, we're going to have a tie, as is tradition. As is tradition. What would be a poll if we just had one winner, right? Do you also buy a bunch of courses and never watch them? No, I just bought Red Team Ops 2, but I haven't had a chance to start it yet. Typically, I only buy a course if I absolutely... Oh, Dig Dug wins by a nose. We're doing Dig Dug then. Let's join the room. Okay. Oh, we have lore. The machine IP machine is also a DNS server. If we could dig into it, I'm sure we could find some interesting records, but it seems like this only responds to a special type of request for the givemetheflag.com domain. Okay. Well, let's get it going. So we're looking to get a record for the givemetheflag.com domain. We'll let it start up here. Wow, spoilers ruined. Well, we have to know what domain to look for unless you want to brute force it, which would be ridiculous. So we can take an opportunity here to the opportunity here to talk about DNS in detail, which is good. What did you think about the IoT device security? About IoT device security issues that devices increase in large numbers all over the world? Is there activity in Is there activity in the field of IoT device pen testing? Absolutely, there is. Absolutely, there is. But there's only limited penetration testers out there. A lot of pen testers dabble in a lot of different things and not just one particular area. Dig Dug. Let's move this over here. So typically we do a lot more of this stuff, this hacking stuff that you could say, on this stream. Today we just decided to do something a little bit different and talk about job interviews. We also do resume reviews on stream as well, where I allow you to send me your resume and I'll review it with the redacted information, of course. Dig Dug. Dig Dug was the name of an old arcade game as well, which is where it came from. What is C2? Command and control. C2 is command and control. It's when you're on a red team assessment, typically you have to manage a bunch of compromised hosts all at once. Reverse shells aren't good enough in that situation. You need some better thing. You need a centralized team server for the machines to be calling back to, and so that you can easily interact with them the way you need to. Hey, I'm fashionably late. Hey, I'm sorry I didn't wear the hoodie yet today, Shinryzen. We did like kind of a mock job interview a little bit. People asked me interview questions and I answered them. So I decided to dress like I typically would for an online job interview. But I'll wear the hoodie next time, I promise. Shin Ryzen was so kind and bought me a new hoodie. Because he's just too kind. Okay. We're waiting. I'm just waiting for the box to properly spin up. T-Mux. So let's start T-Mux. Dig Dug. All right. Let's connect to the VPN. Yeah, it looks like I never disconnected from the VPN last time. Okay, we're connecting to the VPN. All we need to see is this initialization sequence completed at the end. Okay. Let's see if we can ping the box. I minimized it. Did I? What did I do? Oh, here it is. I had it open in Chrome for some reason. I usually use Firefox. All right. Let's go ahead and ping the box and see what we can get. So we can ping it. We can ping it, and we see that it's very likely a Linux machine because the TTL is less than 64. That's what we would expect for a Linux machine. Between 64 and 128, I would expect it to be a Windows machine. And between 128 and 256, I would expect a Cisco device, a Solaris device, something like that. Is it possible to code your own C2 that would do the job? Yeah, absolutely. I have in the past. Okay. It does take a lot of time, and the more well-known C2s are going to have capabilities that your custom C2 probably won't. Apart from what to change in your resume, what other questions do you like to ask for in an interview? Like, what do you like to look for in a company besides salary? I don't bring up salary in interviews usually. I let them bring it up. I'll typically ask about company culture. I'll ask if they have a good allowance for like professional improvement for like conventions and certifications and things like that. These are good practical questions to ask. I ask what the interviewer likes about working at the company. What don't they like about working at the company? That sort of thing. Let's do Nmap. Let's just do a full Nmap scan. They did say it's a DNS server. It's a DNS focused machine, but it can't hurt to do a full Nmap scan. How does the interviewer ask you about your Twitch streaming? Some of them ask about it, and some of them do not. Some of them ask things about why I do it. Some of them don't care, or at least they don't ask questions about it. It does say it on my resume. It says I'm a Twitch streamer on my resume, so the information is there. Okay. So, interestingly, we don't see port 53 open. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Mr. Streamer, DNS, why would you expect port 53 on TCP side to be open? And the answer is because DNS servers will usually have port 53 open for zone transfers. But it doesn't seem like it is here. Oh, whoops. Closed. Well, we can see if port 53 on the UDP side is open. I'm assuming it's going to be. We do need to sudo that. Okay, we do see port 53 open on the UDP side. So we can't expect any kind of zone transfer, really. Because zone transfers can only happen over TCP. Kind of both I've felt. So what is a zone transfer is where one DNS server asks another DNS server for all of their DNS records. Like one DNS is starting. That's why it's called a zone transfer. A DNS server is asking for every record contained in another DNS server. This would typically happen if you were setting up a new DNS server and it needed all the records. So yeah, there you go. But in this case, that can only happen over TCP, so we're not looking for that. So we need to use the dig command here. And let's see, is there a way that we can just get all of the records? Can I pull... When I'm doing DNS enumeration on an actual assessment, I typically won't use dig. I'll use AMAS. And various open source intelligence enumeration. Multigo as well. Let us see. There's obviously a lot of options to dig. I was hoping it would list off all the commands I can give it. Yep. Okay, so we're gonna dig and the IP address, which is that. It needs to be with the @ symbol in front of it for the server. And then we want, was the give me the flag? Givemetheflag.com. Let's just do a basic dig here. I don't know. I thought it was going to be more than that. What? Like, I just had to run a basic dig? I like using tldr.sh. Oh, that seems useful. I don't even know about that. Is that literally... Yeah, it seems like it's literally just the flag. Okay. Yeah, well, thanks. Well, you did say it was fast. I just expected to have to, like, dig a little bit deeper than that.
Hackerman.
I'm in. I guess. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Was it tldr.sh? Oh, this seems very useful. Let's do dig. IP address is associated with a host name. A detailed answer for a given domain of A records. In this case, A records will not work. It's a text record. And we'll just take this opportunity to learn a little bit more about dig. Specific record type. Get all types of records. See, that's what I was actually looking for. I was looking for... Can we just put any right here? Connection refused? Yeah, it won't... It'll force me to specify a domain, I think. We could do 55,200. Any? Connection refused. The TLDR looks really good. I'm writing that down. It does look pretty good. I'm going to make a note of it. I'm surprised I didn't know about it until now. I mean, that's what I did, Ghost. That's what I did. The lore... That's what I did right there. The lore said it only responds to a special type of request for... So it literally will only respond to that specific request. Like, is that literally it? Okay. Jesus. Well, I expected it to be a little bit more than that. Have you ever used cheat.sh? No. I don't think so. Cheat.sh? The only cheat sheet you need, unified access to the best communicator. That seems pretty good too. Yeah, try that out, chat. Cheat.sh looks pretty good too. Doesn't use HTTPS, interestingly. And you can even use it in curl. Interactive shell. You can query various things. It's basically an online man page by the looks of things. Pretty cool. But yeah, I guess you just were supposed to do this. Okay. I guess we'll do another one. I didn't expect it to be that fast. Jesus. Yeah, we just slapped that thing out. Can we do the JPEG chat? Yeah, we'll do that one. That one was one of the second place boxes, I think. Or it might have been the second place box. We'll do JPEG chat here. No, it looks like I've already done it, actually. But that's okay. I'll do it anyways. All right, start the box up. Ah. That's a good belly you got. My cat's on my lap. You can't see her, but I'm complimenting her belly. TLDR as MSF Venom are already happy. Yep. It seemed like a pretty good tool. If I've done this one, I haven't done it in a long time. Okay. All right, let's see if we can nmap scan the box. Okay, we see port 22 and we see port 3000. Is port 3000 a web server, I wonder? Nope. No web server. Any other ports open? I don't know what 3000 is. So let's just open up a new pane while that one's working, and let's do nmap tac p, tac sv, tac p 3000. Scan specifically port 3000 for a service. We don't get any kind of service. We get TCP wrapped. So now we just connect to it with netcat and see what it gives us. JP chat. Okay, this must be some kind of custom jobby. That is a very good belly you got. Very nice belly. The source code of this service can be found at our admin's GitHub. Okay, well, I need to know a username for that. Use message. Report to report someone to the admins. Perfect. Report. Can I get a username? Broken pipe. Great. It doesn't seem to be giving me anything. And then it kills the pipe. What Linux you're using? This is Kali Linux. It's pretty normal. Pretty strong penetration testing distro. Parrot is also a good one, but I just prefer Kali. I've tried Parrot. I don't like it as much. Maybe it has to be in brackets, I suppose. I want his username. Ah, there we go. Mozzie JPEG. Perfect. That's all we need. Let's go to Google. Let's do a little Google dorking here. Ready? Site github.com. So this will limit all of our results from Google to github.com. A little bit of Google dorking there. Oh, perfect. You love to see it, don't you, chat? You love to see it. Let's look at this. Source code of this service. Yep, we saw this. Okay, I get it. So there was no other way you could have... Okay. There was no other way we could log to a file other than executing in a very poor bash one-liner. With a format string. Absolutely no way we could have done this. Okay, listen, it can't be done. The technology isn't there. Okay? Okay, so what we're seeing here is that in the report form function, which gets called when you report, when you write report in here, we come up here to this function. It says this report will be read by Mozzie JPEG, which we saw over here, right? And then it says, as you put in your name and as you put in your report, and for both of those, it takes your name and places it in a format string right here into this bash one-liner. So we should be able to pretty easily get a reverse shell, I would think. os.system does not return the command output, so we're not going to be able to see command output. But we can certainly do something like ping ourselves and see if we can get arbitrary code execution. A very well-coded chat app. Report. Okay, so now we're injecting. So you can just put a semicolon and ping taxi 3 10.13.10.69. Nice. That's my IP address, if you hadn't noticed. And I guess we can put a pound symbol just to comment out the rest of it. We do have to put in something here. And there's the ping. Wow. We did it. Okay, does everybody, this is Newbie Tuesday. I don't want to leave anyone in the lurch. Does everybody understand what happened there? Does everybody understand what we did there? This is actually very common. This is very, very, very common to see on real assessments. You should always do this with proprietary company software. Check to see if it's on GitHub anywhere. If it's in a GitHub in a public repo. If so, I mean, this is honestly kind of a silly vulnerability. But stuff like this does happen. You'll find hard-coded credentials. You'll find backdoors. You'll find API keys. You'll find vulnerabilities too. So we have a remote code execution vulnerability in this Python web app or Python chat app. So we can use our hack tools browser extension. This is for free that you can download and add to your Firefox. We can use this reverse shell generator. It has all a bunch of other tools you can use, like cheat sheets and so on in there. So make sure to check that out if that's the first time you're seeing that. We can come down here. Kill this. LVP 8443. We'll go back up. And we'll do... we're just going to do this again. And then we're going to do report. Okay. We have to put a semicolon. Does everyone understand why we're putting the semicolon in there? This is where our command is going. It's being put right here. The command is being put right here. Putting a semicolon terminates this echo command and starts a new command. That's why we're putting that semicolon in there. Then we're going to paste our one-liner in. And then we're adding on the pound symbol at the end. Why are we putting on that pound symbol at the end? Why is that important? Why is that? Why am I doing that, chat? Again, keep in mind that our code is being put right there. Yeah, because it comments the rest out here. All the rest of this stuff is going to get commented out. So we don't want that stuff to get executed. We want this stuff to be not executed. So a comment, we're indicating to the interpreter of os.system that this is, we're indicating to bash that the rest of this is not actually to be executed. It's a comment. Okay? That should prevent any issues that we have. I don't think the single quotes should cause a problem. But clearly I was wrong. Damn it. Other people told me in chat, and I was like, surely the single quotes won't be a problem. But I guess they are. So we're going to do the same thing again. Fuck. Oh, here's the Node.js stuff we were doing last week. Or 2 days ago. Not last week. But double quotes around it instead. Single quotes are not equivalent to double quotes, but they will be equivalent in this particular instance. Okay. There we go. And we get our reverse shell. Does everybody understand? Fuck. We'll go back to there. We'll close out. Oh, fuck. Okay, well, now we have to do it again. And we also broke it. Oh, never mind. It's not broken. We're safe, chat. Okay, let's make sure we get it right this time. Okay. So let's make sure we don't close it. All right. Now for real.
Hackerman.
I'm in. All right, we did it, boys. Anybody have any questions about that? Anything? If you got questions, make sure to ask. What do you guys think? Nothing? Nothing at all. Nobody has any thoughts. No thoughts? Hey, thanks, Anthony J.A. Appreciate it. Saniac, thank you for the follow. Anthony J.A., thanks for the 100 gold biddies. I appreciate it. We see we are an actual user on this box, Wes. Does Wes have a home directory? I'm assuming he will. Yeah, he does. Does he have... Okay, we can cat user.text. So we do have user.text there. So we're in kind of a shitty reverse shell here. But there's a couple of ways that we can improve it. We already have the flag submitted. I forgot we've already done this. I think I'd like to get... I don't like how I've set this up here. Where I've split the pane in half and then caught the shell down here. So I'm only dealing... And I can't kill this process. So I think I'm going to get an SSH shell if I can. Let's see if I can get .ssh. Okay. So we're going to create an SSH directory, and we're going to put the authorized a key, a public key into it so that we can SSH in. So SSH, let's generate a key for our friend Wes. Call it Wes RSA. No passphrase. There we go. So we want cat Wes RSA.pub. So this is the public key. You don't need the username and stuff at the end. You just need the base 64. So copy all this stuff. Come over here. Echo. Terminal's going to mess up here, but don't be alarmed. Oh, actually, it looks okay. There we go. Does everybody understand what's happening here? Does everybody know how authorized keys works at this point? If you don't, feel free to ask. Okay. So we should be able to SSH in now as Wes. Wes at 10.10.155.248. And there we go. So now we have a proper SSH shell here. Let's do bash. There we go. For some reason, his default shell appears to be sh. Does it have to be named authorized keys? Yes, because that is the file that SSH looks to find out if a presented SSH key is valid for a given account. Does that make sense? Why // in the name of the key? Just to make sure it was saved to my current working directory. If you use SSH keygen, it by default saves them to your SSH directory rather than the current working directory. So I add the // to have it saved to the current working directory instead. Good question. Let's do, since we're an actual user account, let's do sudo tacl. And we do see that we have, we can do set E and V on... So we can execute this. I can already see what the privesc is. So as root, we're allowed to execute testmodule.py in the /opt development directory. But we can also have it use a given set of environment variables. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Does everybody know what environment variables are? Let's look at... So these are all the environment variables that are present in my current session right here. You'll notice that there are things like your path environment variable is very important. There is the location of your mail file, location of your where the present working directory is, what the current username is, various information that's important for your current session. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everybody? Does it leave any logs? If so, can we clear it? Yeah, SSH logs will leave logs. You'd have to be root to clear the SSH logs, so we have to be root first. But we're not root yet. We are Wes. At this point, we could clear the authorized key out of SSH if we really wanted to avoid leaving any artifacts on the host. In general, this is much sneakier than trying to operate out of like a reverse shell over here. So that's why SSH flies under the radar much easier, much quieter. Okay, so let's go to opt development testmodule.py. From compare import star. So compare is a common Python library for comparing strings. That's what it sounds like, or that's what it's used for. But what can we? This is interesting too. So. My goodness, Breaksec with the raid. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, Breaksec. So we changed the Python path variable. Yeah, we can just change. So we can do that. Python 3. Okay. It's only Python 3.5. It's an older box. So we can change where it looks for Python. So we can just change the path environment variable. By the looks of things, we can just change the path environment variable and put a malicious version of Python in the way, right? So we can do like a nano Python. Is it Python or Python 3 that it looks for? It looks for Python 3. So nano Python 3. And we can make this a bash script, actually. It's going to be looking for Python, but it's going to get an executable bash script instead. Oh, I forgot. Let's get the reverse shell that we got earlier. Let's just use a different port this time. Paste this in. Chmod plus X, Python 3. And now if we execute this, we're going to find we get a reverse shell. If we have a listener at port 8444. If we execute that, we find we get a reverse shell connection. Okay? We're just testing it out. So now we can just echo home Wes, because that's the directory we're in right here, right? This is Wes's home directory. So we can do echo home Wes. Oh no, it's export, not echo. It's export path. We're going to set the path environment variable to start with the home directory. $path. Ooh, actually, this may not work. I just realized this probably isn't going to work because sudo tacl. Oh, it may work. Yeah, I think it'll work. We'll do it. Oh, env keep Python path. I didn't even see that. We can do that too. Let's see if this works first. I know how to do that. That was the second goal. I couldn't remember the name of the environment variable off the top of my head, so I decided to see if I could do it this way first. But by the looks of things, we're gonna have to set Python path instead. But we'll look at that here in just a second. So we'll try and sudo this. I don't think it's actually going to work. Yeah, it does not work. So that doesn't work because it's only setting the environment variable for Python path. The Python path is your root Python, is the location of all your Python modules. It's where Python is storing all of its modules. So if a Python script loads a module, it knows where to look. We actually don't have that environment variable set right now, I don't think. I don't see a Python path environment variable, but we can do a very similar attack to the one we just did. We are going to need a Python based reverse shell, which fortunately hack tools can also help us out with. Let's go down, find the Python one. Python. And let's do mkdir py modules. We'll just make a directory to put our stuff in. Py modules. Nano. Now, what do you think we want to call the file? What do you think we want to call the file, friend? Look at what script is being executed. What do we want to call the file? Yeah. We want to call it compare. We want to call it compare because compare is what's being loaded. Right? When it loads this module, it's going to execute it. So we're basically giving it a malicious module that looks like the one it's looking for. We need to call it compare.py. Oh, fuck. It did actually paste. Unfortunately, this is like a reverse shell. One-liner version. So let's see if we can remove these single quotes in the Python-C. I don't think we need to change anything else. Just remove the single quotes. Okay. So now we can try executing it. Now we have to export Python path equals home Wes. I think we're going to have to set the Python path when we actually execute it too. Python path home Wes py modules. So we're gonna have to sudo Python path equals home west pi modules. And then the actual command that we need to execute. Okay. Well, we got connection refused. That's probably because I forgot to start a listener. Yep, that would be because I forgot to start a listener. But the rest of it was okay. As evidenced by the fact that now we have root. Does that make sense? I'm only following the channel because you have a link thumbnail. Hey, thanks, man. That's actually the Elegy of Emptiness statue from Majora's Mask, but I appreciate that, breaded chicken. It's good to have you. Very good to have you. Cthulhu fhtagn, my friend. Anybody have any questions about how that works? Also, huge shout out to Westar for the OSINT idea. I wouldn't have used him if it weren't for him. Yeah, it was a good idea. I like that part of the box. Why didn't you add a path at the end? Because you could only set the Python environment variable. You need to set this. We only have env keep for the Python path environment variable. So the path was useless. I just didn't see this the first time. What's the difference between the set env and the env keep? I think the set env just indicates that that there is an environment variable that you want to keep from the environment. I don't think that it means it keeps all the environment variables. I think it means that it's just going to keep this one. So the x4 command is for changing the environment variable? Yeah. Really, all you had to do was add the environment variable right here before the actual command itself, and it would work just fine. All right. Any other questions, comments, threats, bribes? Not too many dark magics done today, okay? Not somewhat less dark magics. Somewhat less. Not no dark magics, but somewhat less. Just trying something different today, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways. Can you consider doing some programming scripting challenges like Code Wars and Hacker Rank and walk us through your methodology of solving coding challenges? Yeah. Yeah, sure, if you'd like to see that. I like to keep my content focused on security content as much as possible, but if there's a lot of interest in that, I'd be happy to do it. Anything else? It looks like Hate handles the streaming, so we're going to be rating him today. So yeah, hopefully my foot will be feeling better on Thursday, and I'll be back ready to rumble on that day. Standing up, hopefully. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Let me know if this helped you, this little interview stream helped you, and what you'd like to see from me in the future. I'm trying to diversify my content a little bit while keeping it security focused. So let me know what you want to see. YouTube video coming out very soon once I can finally wrap it up. Go to bed tonight knowing a little bit more than you did yesterday. See you guys again when the stars are right. Stay safe, get vaccinated. Love you all, you guys.